Why does Ingersoll Lockwood have a reference to Enoch on their website? They even have a free version of the Book of Enoch listed as homework for Space Force. Is it a coincidence that this moon map started being circulated after Space Force was created that directly cites the Book of Enoch? On the map, the sun and moon are rays of cosmic energy that converts Atmos to its plasma state with a Polaris refraction point. Is it a coincidence that the Space Force logo depicts the same exact phenomena when pointed at the black hole sun? Maybe the flat plane is much bigger than we think. Do you think we are being prepped for a Star Trek future like some have suggested? Is the moon a mirrored image of our section of the plane? Is space different than the lies NASA has sold us on? The truth will set us free.
It's been 5 years since President Trump appeared for an interview on 60 Minutes, so we had a lot of questions.
What are you doing as president to end the shutdown?
Tonight, he answers them.
Americans have been watching videos of ICE tackling a young mother, tear gas being used in a Chicago residential neighborhood, and the smashing of car windows. Have some of these raids gone too far?
No, I think they haven't gone far enough.
Whether it's this attempt at the biggest pizza party ever or trying to eat an airplane, there's a method to the madness of getting into Guinness World Records. As many as 95% of submissions get rejected.
We do validate people that do things that others might seem a bit weird, like eating aircraft and stuff. So
do you not see that as weird?
I see it as really interesting.
I'm Leslie Stahl.
I'm Scott Pelley.
I'm Bill Whitaker.
I'm Anderson Cooper.
I'm Sharon Alfonsi.
I'm Cecilia Vega.
I'm Nora O'Donnell.
I'm John Wertheim. Those stories, and in our last minute, we reveal one of the best sources for our investigations. Tonight on 60 Minutes.
Israel good, Tucker bad. Sending your tax money to Israel, good. Listening to Tucker bad. You dying in war for Israel, good. Tucker podcast, bad. Daily Wire subscription, good. Everything else, bad. Oh, you like Jordan Peterson? Pay me a subscription, bitch. Israel, 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 good. America, not so much. Israel first, good. America first, not so good. Annoying voice, Ben Shapiro, good. Annoying laugh, Tucker Carlson, bad. Shalom, bitches. Please subscribe.
I was going to say, Ben, come on. You Jews own the media, Ben. Maybe we should also ask a question. Is the media totally presenting the truth when it comes to Israel? Just a question. That maybe we shouldn't believe everything the media says. I've been conditioned to ask a lot more critical questions over the last couple of years.
Charlie Kirk shot and killed while speaking at an event in Utah Valley University this afternoon.
Somehow Israel is behind the Charlie Kirk murder.
That's insane. That's insane. It's not only insane, I think it's so absurd, so stupid, and so ridiculous. You can't believe that people are saying that. They just found the perpetrator. They'll get.
Shut up, Jew.
And I saw some Democrat members today saying they're still going to accept their paychecks because they have 3 kids at home and they have mouths to feed. Well, so do these federal workers who those same Democrats just voted to shut down the government and turn off their pay. And we believe that's very unfair, and it's why the administration wants to see the government reopened.
How do you sleep at night knowing people don't like you?
With no underwear in case they want to kiss my ass.
Nobody knew what we were dealing with. I had the best health experts from around the globe giving us advice. We followed the best advice. We followed the federal guidance. And people died in a horrific way. There were no visitors allowed into nursing homes. And I apologize for any family that lost a loved one during that time. It was on my watch. And I understand how terrible it was.
Yeah, we really...
Jonathan Rumi, the actor who plays Jesus in the show The Chosen, stops the production of the show for this reason.
I'm saying these words, and hearing them, hearing myself say them, I don't feel worthy to be saying them. This is why I tell this story, because it drives home the point of the gift that I've been given in playing this role. puts his hand on my shoulder and he says, "Brother, none of us are truly worthy. But here we are. I mean, it's you and me. Here we are. We're doing this so that the world may know his story. Those who haven't heard his story may know the impact that he's had on the world and on our lives personally." And I'm slightly paraphrasing because it's been many years since we shot that, but that was the essence, and it settled my spirit. And I thought, he's right. He's right. For whatever reason, God saw fit to put me in that role and not somebody else. Nobody else auditioned. There weren't auditions for the role. He had just called me up and said, "Do you want to do this again?" And I said, "Yes, of course." I didn't hesitate. But then when we got to that moment, it started to dawn on me the weight of what it was that I was being given to do, and would then inform the encounters and the experiences that I would have as the show progressed, and as we now arrive here at season 5, the dawn of season 5.
There's only one God. Don't believe me? Listen to this.
The Bible reveals one God, not three gods, in three persons, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. This is mystery and revelation together. In the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God, and the Word became flesh. Jesus is the eternal creator. Jesus said, "Before Abraham was, I am," taking God's covenant name from Exodus, "I am who I am," claiming full deity. Scripture records the Father addressing the Son, "Your throne, O God, is forever and ever." Even Thomas confessed, "My Lord and my God." The Spirit speaks, teaches, can be grieved, and Peter says lying to the Spirit is lying to God. The Spirit is fully divine. At Jesus' baptism, the Son is baptized, the Spirit descends, the Father speaks. One God, three persons, perfectly present. Only God can save. Jesus, our great God and Savior, died and rose to redeem us. The Spirit applies that salvation to our hearts. He's not just a teacher, He is Lord. Every knee will bow, every tongue confess Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father. The Trinity isn't a puzzle to confuse us, it's a truth to save us. One God, Father who loves, Son who redeems, Spirit who empowers. Don't just believe in Him, worship Him, live for Him, and walk in His power.
Multiple senior Trump officials are now moving into military bases. Here's what we know. Multiple senior officials in the Trump administration have relocated to military bases in the Washington, D.C. area amid reported concerns for their personal safety, according to The Atlantic. Top Trump advisor Stephen Miller and his family recently moved into military housing after their neighbors in Arlington, Virginia protested their presence. The Millers have since listed their home for $3.75 million. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem is residing in a government-owned residence in Joint Base Anacostia Bolling, a home typically used by the Coast Guard Commandant. A Department of Homeland Security spokesperson said Noem is, quote, paying fair market rent for the property. Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth are both living on Fort McNair's General's Row near Buzzard Point. Rubio reportedly lives there alone, while his family remains in Florida. A Defense Department official said Hegseth pays around $4,655.70 per month for his residence. Army Secretary Daniel P. Driscoll has also moved into military housing at Joint Base Meyer-Henderson Hall, which he shares with Navy Secretary John Feeling. Feeling's Washington home was damaged in a fire earlier this year, according to congressional staff familiar with the matter. National Intelligence Director Tulsi Gabbard had also considered relocating to Fort McNair earlier in the year, though the plan did not move forward due to limited space, The Atlantic reported. While it is not uncommon for some defense and national security officials to reside in military housing, experts say it is unusual for so many senior civilian leaders to do so at the same time.
We have been brought into a society that's only concern is the production of its inhabitants. If you are not a machine, you will be outcasted and shunned in the eyes of society.
Creepy last words people said right before dying.
John said that back in the 80s, when he was a young patrol officer in Phoenix, Arizona, he was the first to arrive at a motorcycle accident. The Harley Davidson was torn apart across the asphalt. The rider, a big man with a thick beard and arms covered in tattoos, lay crumpled beside the wreck. His chest looked wrong, sunken in. Each breath a desperate gasp. "I need to go to confession," he choked out, blood bubbling at the corner of his mouth. "Should have gone yesterday," he said. John said that he knelt beside him, trying to keep him talking, but the man's eyes were wide, darting at things that John couldn't see. "I've done terrible things," he said. "Murder. It's coming for me." His voice broke into a panic chant. "Please, God, help me. God, please help me." Then softer. "It says my soul belongs to him now. It has horns." John said that his last words came out in a trembling whisper. "I'm going to hell," he said. And with the word hell, the man's body gave one last shudder and went still, his expression frozen in horror. The paramedics pulled up less than a minute later, but John knew that they were already too late.
At the 1992 Freddie Mercury tribute, David Bowie did something no one expected. He prayed. Just minutes before walking on stage, he learned a friend was slipping into a coma. He said, "Something just told me to say the Lord's Prayer." And in front of millions, he did.
And I'd like to offer something in a very simple fashion, but it's the most direct way that I can think of doing it. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
In a world where so many artists glorify fire and brimstone, Bowie turned toward the light. And maybe, just maybe, people are feeling today what Bowie felt then, that pull towards something real. Bible sales are up more than 20% this year, not because faith is trending, but because the world is starving for hope. My friends, we are all anonymous, and what he did that night wasn't strange. It was courageous. It was honest. And maybe it's time more of us do the same.
In Venezuela, gay marriage is banned. Abortion is banned. Sex changes for transgenderism are banned. It's one of the very few countries in the entire hemisphere with those policies. It is on social policy, not defending the regime, just saying, one of the most conservative countries in North or South or Central America. Only El Salvador really comes close. And by the way, the U.S.-backed opposition leader who would take Maduro's place if he were taken out is, of course, pretty eager to get gay marriage in Venezuela. So to those of you who thought this whole project was globo homo, not crazy, actually.
What's up, America? The federal government is now warning that there might be hidden radios and listening devices in solar-powered highway infrastructure. Yes, signs like this that use solar panels in order to illuminate them and for other purposes. I'm sure you guys have seen this type of shit where there's signs on the highway that use solar panels. I've seen multiple of them. This particular one comes from an illuminated crosswalk sign by a school in California. But U.S. officials are now saying that the solar panel highway infrastructure, including chargers, roadside weather stations, and traffic cameras, now need to be scanned for the presence of rogue Chinese devices such as hidden radios. Those radios and transmitters apparently have been secretly added inside batteries and in inverters in these fucking pieces of technology. These right here also, those mobile crime deterrent things that you're seeing all over the place, that's just a series of cameras, those also have Chinese surveillance inside of them, says the U.S. government, stating to the battery management system of these devices as well. The news agency Reuters said that undocumented cellular radios have been discovered in these devices throughout the United States. Same with these, the solar speed limit signs that change. There's Chinese listening devices and transmitters in those as well. Some say surveillance for watching the local area and sending data back to China. Apparently, it's been discovered in Denmark as well in their green energy supply network. And apparently that's another reason why the Commerce Department basically banned nearly all Chinese cars and trucks into the U.S. market by late 2026 because of surveillance and listening devices that are being put into all of our technology coming from China. And that's a news story coming from Reuters News.
The continuity of government argument is the one I carry closest. It declares that Executive Order 13848 in 2018 made election interference a national emergency. On April 1st, 2020, April Fool's Day, though no one was laughing, I believe Trump activated Directive 40 in response to seditious actions within the Pentagon.
45, 46, and 47, if you think about it. I just don't want the credit for 46.
The TV generals, Milley, Austin, and elements of the Joint Chiefs were not read in. They were, by my analysis, part of the seditious conspiracy that necessitated the activation. The military never fully transferred power to Joe Biden. 2021 to 2025 was an interregnum, a shadow government. Trump never stopped being the 45th, 46th, and 47th president, with hats and merchandise emblazed with 45-47, the dash suggesting a pause, skipping Biden entirely. 2025 to 2029 is the continuation of his first term. The obstacle is brutal. Article 2, Section 1 says the president shall hold office during the term of 4 years. Biden took the oath. Trump did not, at least not publicly. An extended single term, 2017 until continuity of government is restored to Trump, in theory does the trick. But this begs the question, what signals the end of Trump's first term? Military tribunals and the draining of the swamp of the treasonous lot? Seditious conspirators shot by firing squad? The problem this theory presents is that it would necessarily call into question whether 2024 was legitimate, whether it counts. Because if it does, you run right back to the 2 terms only problem. Still, I think this is the best theory that Trump has not enjoyed 2 terms. But regardless of my enthusiasm for this theory, it's too mind-numbingly incredible for most of America to wrap their heads around. And that is the strongest argument against it. The repeal of the 22nd Amendment is the only path with teeth in the open. It requires 2/3 of the House, 290 votes. It requires 2/3 of the Senate, 67 votes. It requires 3/4 of the states, 38. Timeline ranges from 100 to 180 days. Obstacles. The filibuster blocks it even with 62 Republican senators. If even 8 defect, the repeal dies. California, New York, Illinois never ratify. The path requires a miracle that would need to be paired with a safeguard. The 28th Amendment, passed in the same breath, grants a single, one-time third term to the once-in-a-lifetime president who reclaimed our stolen republic from the abyss.
Because I screwed up. One of those mountains. Yes, seals. Any Navy SEAL in here? You spell it wrong. So one of those mountains, though, is the Media Mountain. Right? The Media Mountain. And so what I always say is, in the military, we do a lot of things, but one of the things we want to do is we want to maintain the moral high ground. Okay? We want to maintain the moral high ground. And how you maintain the moral high ground is you are all those character traits that I talk about, but you have to fight for the truth. And like a good NCO told me one time when I was a young officer going through training, and I said, well, Sergeant, and I was a trainee, well, Sergeant, this is what he's like, let me tell you about the truth. There's your truth, and there's my truth, and then there's the truth, right? And so I was like, okay. And I learned that a long time ago. So when we
Hello, Patriots. God bless you guys. Welcome to Patriot News Broadcasting. Good to see you all. What'd you think of that intro? I just love putting together everything, people are putting out daily, showing it to you guys. Some great Patriots out there. It's good to be with you all here tonight. And, I've been hearing different things today and looking at everything and thinking about all these different channels. And, there's some of them that really kind of keep you on the edge of your seat, like feeling negative all the time, kind of feeling down, not down, but like worried all the time. But I don't like the panicking channels. I like the peaceful people. Anyway, good to see you all again. Let's look at some things because I forgot completely what I was going to begin the show with. I haven't done that in a while. It's been one of those days. Been a long day. We're on an hour early tonight. I thought I'd, give it a try, see who was on, and you're all here. It's good to see you all. God brought you here. Doc Holiday says the days of being anonymous are almost over. It's been a fun ride, but it's time to build the future. I second that. Anyone else second that? I second that. Yeah, I'll get to the UPS plane crash, Louisville? Was that Louisville? I can say Louisville like a Kentucky man, Louisville. It's Louisville. If you live down there, it's Louisville. It's one of my favorite posts from the day. I thought it was kind of funny. Went into the wrong door at Mar-a-Lago. What'd you find? A bunch of time machines. Oh, I guess they're just DeLoreans. And this, saying from Abraham Lincoln, kindness is the only service that will stand the storm of life and not wash out. I love a good quote. All right, where are we? Shut down? Yeah, we're still shut down. I thought this was a great point that somebody pointed out today. When you see these two standing together, she looks really tall, doesn't she? Even with heels on. Trump's 6'3", and she's supposed to be 5'7", but she sure looks a bit taller than he does, doesn't she? Good catch, whoever caught that one and posted it first, because I would have totally overlooked that, because I just never really watched 60 Minutes to begin with. So, gotta admit, Patriots catch everything, don't they? Delta for the day. We will protect the vote. All hands on deck. Perfect timing for the mayoral race in New York City, which we will get to here eventually. And then this post from the White House, the 9 a.m. timestamp. Take it over here. We will be voting. I can't see it. We'll be voting this week. Heading to Tennessee now. And Elon Musk, he changed his picture to this, and it says, the future is autonomous. What do you guys think about that? I forgot to show you a video the other day. It was yet another Chinese robot that they released. And this one, it's yet again better than every video you see before the last. It's pretty wild. So, I see somebody in the chat that needs a wrench. And this, I know I mentioned this, but I forgot to show it from the Nuremberg movie coming out. Judgment is coming November 7th. There's a lot of key events and anniversaries and things happening this month that we're going to take a look at. Take a look at a couple of these really fast. The government shutdown is not what you think. Nothing about this is normal. The shutdown is a smoke screen for a silent purge and the beginning of the end for the cabal's grip on power. The official story, funding failure. Reality, strategic military operation unfolding under the cover of a shutdown. Official story, federal buildings closed, servers disconnected, contractors sent home. Reality, behind sealed doors. Special teams are removing files, hard drives, and evidence of massive corruption. Official story, Treasury and Federal Reserve accounts being frozen and transferred. And in reality, QFS systems are already live in parallel mode, testing real-time payments and gold-backed credit. The IRS offices shut with no notice, agents being interrogated, the old tax apparatus is being dismantled while new transparent flat system is installed. And that's actually not 100% accurate. We'll look at that today, what they're going to do with those agents. Classified communication lines move to secure military channels. When the signal switches to EBS, the public will understand why this shutdown was necessary. I'm not sure what that is. And this one, the scroll of sacred isolation. It's not isolation, it's intimacy. Okay. I see what it is. We'll move forward. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Dick Cheney died. Should we just move on? That's what I did when O.J. Simpson died. Oh, yeah, he died. We'll look at it. Darn it. It said he died from complications related to pneumonia and cardiac and vascular disease. He will not be missed.
We continue to follow breaking news. Former Vice President Dick Cheney has died.
Here's a look back at his life.
Richard Bruce Cheney forged an identity as a no-nonsense, loyal gate.
Yeah, we're not going through a flashback of his life. We lived through it, funding the weapons that America could buy to keep their war going that shouldn't have been going. And the United States sent a UN Security Council member as a draft resolution on Monday for the establishment of an international force in Gaza for a duration of at least 2 years. This is interesting, especially with what we saw Netanyahu was saying yesterday about, I'm going to bomb it. If I want to bomb it, I'll bomb it.
The U.S. has reportedly submitted a plan to the UN Security Council for the establishment of a so-called international stabilization force in the Gaza Strip. According to several reports, the draft resolution would allow that force, a linchpin of President Trump's peace plan for Gaza, to operate there through the end of 2027. News Nation's Robert Sherman live in Tel Aviv with the very latest on peace efforts. Robert, what else is in this proposal?
Yeah, I mean, when you read through this, it really emphasizes here, Kelly, that there's still work to be done when it comes to the stabilization inside of Gaza. This proposal that American officials are submitting to UN Security Council members, this is supposed to be negotiated over the next couple of weeks. You're talking about a security force that would be operating within Gaza for the next 2 years. They would coordinate with the Israelis and the Egyptians directly in order to secure the borders of the enclave and ensure the process of demilitarizing the Gaza Strip. That last one, a very important one, because President Trump has made explicitly clear that if Hamas does not demilitarize on their own, they are prepared to destroy Hamas outright, making clear that Hamas cannot be allowed to control the Gaza Strip in any capacity.
So, yeah, I mean, Trump wants it so when people go back and it's rebuilt, that they can live in peace. It's a big, big ask right there. Shouldn't be, of course, but it'll be an interesting task to see what happens. And I suppose if Hamas does not do it, they will probably wipe them out in some form or another. Looking at some things here Trump had to say about both the elections and constitutional redistricting. Vote in California is a giant scam, and in that the entire process, in particular the voting itself, is rigged. Now, he's still planning on signing something about mail-in ballots we'll look at. Communist candidate Zohran Mamdani wins the election for mayor of New York City. It is highly unlikely that I'll be contributing federal funds other than the very minimum as required to my beloved first home because of the fact that, as a communist, this once great city has zero chance of success. Yeah. At the end here, he's basically saying you really don't have a choice but to vote for Andrew Cuomo, right? And never thought you'd hear that, but, that gets interesting too. Because, if you remember back, he was one of the people that said he was stepping down from being governor, wasn't going to run again, was done. And, he's turning up at another place, kind of interesting. So, you know what the saying is about that, about people that don't seek re-election, been put into submission. So it's sort of, and you've seen how his brother's changed a lot too, the one that was on the news. So Trump may have just put the Cuomo brothers in submission, I'd say. So it goes without saying. He also said the Democrats are far more likely to win the midterms than the next presidential election if we don't do the termination of the filibuster, the nuclear option. He said it. He said the thing. See it there? The nuclear option? Because it will be impossible for Republicans to get common sense policies done with these crazed Democrat lunatics being able to block everything by withholding their votes. For 3 years, nothing will be passed, and Republicans will be blamed. Yeah, well, they're going to do that anyway, We're kind of used to that too, but nuke it, nuclear option. But this, I saw something interesting today. You had seen... there was a good amount of people that came out put their vote out early, and the early polls kept saying it looked like Mamdani was quite a bit ahead, but from what they were saying today, earlier in the day, it sounded like Andrew Cuomo had a good lead. So, we know how polls go, were the polls extremely misleading from the beginning. Maybe. And of course, about that time, the bomb threats kicked in New Jersey counties. Only the Republican ones, of course. The election machines went down in multiple locations across Cumberland County, New Jersey, as Republicans were outperforming their 2024 turnout by double digits. I have a feeling that Trump might just use this election to really expose what's happening in our elections. Elon Musk says New York City ballot form is a scam, no ID required. Other mayoral candidates appear twice. Cuomo's name is last in the bottom right. Zohran Mamdani listed twice on the ballot for today's election. 92% chance he wins. And apparently that's legal to do to some point when they've been nominated by different groups. There's those 3 red districts in Cumberland County where the machines went down. gotta laugh a little bit. Yeah, that's just about more than one candidate. So let's take a look at what's happening here.
Fox News alert. Right now, bomb threats forcing voters out of at least 2 polling places in New Jersey as residents across the state cast ballots for their next governor. And Mark Meredith is live in Montclair, New Jersey with the latest. Mark, what's going on?
Ainsley, Lawrence, and Brian, good morning, friends. The polls have been open throughout New Jersey since about 6 a.m. Since then, a handful of bomb threats have been called in to a number of polling places across the Garden State. We know in Mercer County, as well as where we have seen in Passaic. It's unclear exactly how many of these polling places have been impacted, but because the polls were open, since they've been open since 6, a number of people who may have been in line or getting ready to go vote were had to move off-site to other voting locations, at least temporarily. We've been at this elementary school here, not too far from where some of these threats were called earlier, because this is where the Democratic gubernatorial nominee is going to be voting. Mikey Sherrill girls should be voting here around 9 a.m. I just spoke to her campaign. They are aware of the situation impacting some of these polling places. The candidate is likely to address this when she gaggles with reporters in the 9 a.m. hour. All an indication, though, again, that there is a lot of people very curious what will happen here in New Jersey. The spotlight has been on this race nationally, and we have seen this before in other elections. But these potential threats, whether or not it's going to have a widespread impact on turnout, it's unclear. More than 1 million people cast their ballots ahead of Election Day. There was early voting, mail-in balloting as well.
Whether it'll have an effect or not, it's unclear. Yeah. We'll see what happens with this. I think we'll see a lot come out from that. Trump said any Jewish person that votes for Zohran Mamdani, a proven and self-professed Jew hater, is a stupid person. I want to show you a couple things, what they all said about it. Mamdani had this to say.
All right, we'll go right here. Are you concerned at all about any voter intimidation? There were some issues in New Jersey this morning, North Jersey, of bomb threats with voting locations, not here, but your level of concern that could play out here somehow.
It's incredibly concerning. Right. And I think that it is an illustration of the attacks we're seeing on our democracy. Sometimes they're blatant and explicit in the manner of these bomb threats. And we also have to know that here in New York City,
the bomb threats were emailed in. Sort of like when a water pipe bursts in Atlanta, or you use the wrong pens in Arizona. Cuomo, if you saw it in the intro, it should have been in there, apologized for, all the people dying in the nursing homes, and nobody was really expecting that. He came out later and had this to say.
Right now, the New York City mayoral candidate Andrew Cuomo is now speaking after voting in a Manhattan precinct. I want to listen to this. Listen.
I want to thank them for everything they've done. Doing it as a family is special. I did it with my father for many campaigns. A lot of good memories, and it's nice to carry on that legacy. I want to thank you guys who have been on the campaign trail, because this was a long one and this was a hard one, and you guys had to run all over this city, and I know what that's like. And then you had to deal with candidates. It's not always easy. I'm always a pleasure, like some of the others. So job well done for you guys. And
he does kind of look different too, doesn't he? He's thin in the face or something. His hair's not as curly. I don't know. I would say if Trump's supporting him, and not that there's really a choice, but either way, hopefully Trump gets this done soon.
Legal and criminal review. By whom and why? And also, in this vein, does the White House still plan to issue an executive order banning mail-in voting, and what legal authority do you have to do that?
Working on an executive order to strengthen our elections in this country and to ensure that there cannot be blatant fraud, as we've seen in California with their universal mail-in voting system.
You guys lose me for a second?
It's absolutely true that there's fraud in California's elections. It's just a fact. It is just a fact. They have a universal mail-in voting system, which we know is ripe for fraud. And if you want to deny that, I'm happy to provide you all of the evidence for it. I'd be glad to send that to you after this briefing.
Rigged.
Fraudulent ballots that are being mailed in the names of other people, in the names of illegal aliens who shouldn't be voting in American elections. There's countless examples, and we'd be happy to provide them. As for executive action the White House is taking, yes, we are looking into that. And like any executive order, of course, any executive order the president signs is within his full executive authority and within the confines of the law.
Yes, I did hear about the nipple ring incident. Sounds like he might have been beaten into submission a long time ago by Trump back in the COVID days. The Dominican Republic says the Americas Summit is postponed amid the tension over the U.S. military deployment over Venezuela.
Under the humid air of Santo Domingo, the marble facade of the National Palace reflected the late afternoon sun as government aides rushed through the courtyard with folders and briefings. The atmosphere was calm on the surface, yet beneath it, a quiet urgency rippled through the capital. The Dominican Republic had just made an announcement that would echo across the hemisphere.
Oh, for God's sakes, who taught that woman to be a reporter? Yeah, the summit's postponed. The Dominican Republic's a little nervous about everything happening. 6 people are dead and 25 hospitalized in the nationwide listeria outbreak. Again, this one linked to pre-cooked pasta meals. Cases have been reported in 18 states: California, Florida, Hawaii, Illinois, Indiana, Louisiana, Michigan, Minnesota, Missouri, North Carolina, Nevada, Ohio, Oregon, South Carolina, Texas, Utah, Virginia, and Washington. It's always something, isn't it?
More cases and deaths have been linked to a listeria outbreak in prepared pasta meals sold at major retailers.
And those include Walmart and Trader Joe's. Gwen Baumgartner has the details.
A warning from the nation's top health agencies. Check your refrigerator and freezer for a number of different pasta meals. They may be contaminated with listeria. Products include Trader Joe's Cajun-style blackened chicken breast fettuccine Alfredo, Sprouts Farmers Market's smoked mozzarella pasta salad, and Scott & John's shrimp scampi with linguine bowls. The FDA's website has full details. All have been
It's always Trader Joe's. I don't know what that is, but you might not want to buy it anymore. They're always linked to something, I think. Multiple countries, including this one, called Monday for a worldwide ban on mercury-based dental amalgams by 2030 at a meeting of signatories to a treaty on limiting the toxic metal. Is that kind of like your metal fillings, I guess? I don't know.
A global shift, mercury-free dentistry by 2030. In a bold move, countries worldwide are advocating for a complete ban on mercury-based dental fillings by 2030. This initiative, led by ABS-CBN, the Philippines' premier media powerhouse, aims to revolutionize oral healthcare practices and promote environmental sustainability. But here's where it gets controversial. While mercury-based fillings have been a standard practice for decades, concerns about their potential health and environmental impacts have been growing. Mercury.
Yeah, I thought they had done away with metal fillings a long time ago. Is it just me, or... Yeah, we will, Eric. I haven't seen anything come in yet. I've been watching. Typhoon flooding killed 5 and stranded thousands in the Philippines. Speaking of the Philippines and their revolutions in dental science.
Typhoon Kalnagi is moving from the Philippines to Vietnam, leaving a trail of destruction. The storm caused flash floods and hurricane-force winds to a region still reeling from a devastating earthquake that hit in September. Today, the Philippine military confirmed that a helicopter deployed on a relief mission to typhoon-hit areas crashed in the south. There are no indications of the cause of that crash or if there are survivors.
Is it typhoon related? Maybe? No. A leaked document claims the Biden administration created a target list, now up to 700 Americans, with 12 marked for neutralization, outlining plans to silence, surveil, or remove U.S. citizens during a potential second Biden term. Does that not sound like a nightmare?
People need to understand how politicized the Biden administration turned all these agencies. And again, the best way to describe President Biden's attitude were his exact quotes. He thought basically half America were domestic terrorists. In September 2022, in front of Independence Hall, he said, Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans represent an extremism that threatens the very foundation of our republic. A year later, in New York City, Donald Trump and his MAGA Republicans are determined to destroy American democracy. Now, nothing could be further from the truth. That is a level of paranoia that's actually astonishing. But the fact that 38 Wisconsinites are on that enemies list, I know most of those individuals. They are God-fearing, country-loving, law enforcement supporting people who want to see America succeed. The fact that they are on a Biden administration enemies list, were targeted by that administration, is outrageous. It should shock every American.
I wonder if it's been going on much longer than we knew, and much larger of a list than we ever knew. Rick Scott made a statement on it too.
First, I want to thank Senator Ron Johnson, Congressman Byron Donalds for being here. This is ridiculous what's going on. This is the third time in my life I've been targeted by the executive branch. The latest is Jack Smith. So he, I don't know why, but it was an attack against me, an attack against Ron, and a bunch of others, but really it was an attack against the Republican Party. Their goal was to destroy the Republican Party. So this is my third time. During the Biden administration, they stole my tax records and disclosed them to ProPublica. Anything happened to ProPublica? Absolutely not. The Biden administration did nothing to them. I led the effort to fight against Hillary-Care back under the Clinton administration. So as a result, I got the Clinton DOJ to investigate.
Yeah, the real question is, will people on the left pay attention to this? This is the kind of stuff they really can't argue, and I'm sure they'll probably just ignore it, but hopefully it's there to teach them, and we know it's so much deeper than that. This is what foreign loyalty looks like. Ben Shapiro said, I would gladly waive the Born in USA requirement for presidency for Bibi. I think I threw a clip of him in the intro too, and Charlie Kirk arguing with them about the mainstream media, which is very important. I don't remember who posted this either. There's a lot in Lindsay Halligan's new filing, but if I had to single out one thing, it'd be the handwritten note below, discovered earlier this year by Kash Patel in the burn bag in the sealed room. Unused skiff at FBI headquarters. The note proves beyond any doubt that James Comey knew from the very beginning that the entire Russia collusion narrative was a Hillary Clinton campaign hoax. In his own handwriting on his own notepad, he acknowledges the HRC plan to tie Trump. The date, September 26, 2016, is especially damning, coming just days after he received the official referral outlining Clinton's plot. Even if one were to accept for argument's sake that Comey initially believed an investigation into Trump was warranted, this revelation should have ended it immediately, but instead he escalated. Yeah, he's trying hard to get this trial thrown out and stuff. We'll look at that in a bit. James Comey. I thought this was kind of funny. World on track to dangerous warming as emissions hit record high. That's from the United Nations. They're still really trying to convince you. And it's funny because there's this like gigantic cold front coming in right now. I thought it was funny. Doesn't feel like anything's getting warmer to me, but you know. Somebody pointed out these posts from Brylan Hollyhan that, you know, it's supposed to be the sort of new hit the Generation Z, doing what Charlie Kirk was doing guy. The left didn't disavow their cancerous ideology when the Squad was just a radical fringe having press conferences. Now they elected Mamdani. If we don't call out our own, this fringe will drag our party off a cliff like their Squad did to the left. We should call out corruption with AIPAC and the Israeli government all day. But mainstreaming, fantasizing, rape, idolizing Stalin, and proudly being Team Hitler is disgusting. I mean, where does he... I get sort of what he's trying to say. Hate killed the left. If we're not careful, we'll be the next. But I get it. There, like I said, you know, there's people within MAGA that would like to keep people divided and arguing and confused. But I don't think there's much hate on this side. There's always hate, and people can be kind of crude at times on this side, but I remember telling President Trump the GOP was like a Southern Baptist church that forgot its youth group, doomed to fade away. Thankfully, he listened. Somehow I doubt it. This is not going to make you guys very happy if you're a dog lover like me. The National Institute of Health approved $20 million in new funding for canine research studies. This came out the other day. Despite congressional backlash after Fauci was busted for sedating young beagle puppies, locking their heads in mesh cages so infected sandflies could bite and eat their faces alive. This is a true story. The funding was confirmed via NIH's official grant database. $20 million funds 14 separate dog testing projects, including beagle heart failure experiments, spinal cord injury studies, and toxic chemical exposure. If that's not evil, I don't know what is. And we see a small amount of drugs coming out there. You know, they're telling you 92% of the stuff they test don't even come out. They just test it, and it's freaking evil. And Robert Kennedy said they weren't going to do that anymore. So I hope he can do something about this, because it's sick. I've seen the pictures of the sandfly experiments, and it doesn't get more evil than that. It's really disgusting. And I could curse about it right now, but I probably better not, because I'll go off on a tangent. Whoopi Goldberg is furious at receiving a legal note live on air for falsely claiming that Donald Trump uses an auto pen like Joe Biden. It's kind of weird after her Ghost in the Machine shirt the other day for Halloween, right?
The Trump family has made about $1.8 billion profited off of this government. And he said that Joe Biden didn't know who he was pardoning using an auto pen. How come he don't know who this guy is?
Because he used an auto pen. Let me meetings with the judge. The meetings that they're supposed to go to when they're listening to what the hell, what?
I love when Sonny passes notes.
We don't know if Trump used an auto pen to part. It was a joke.
Yes. We don't know if Trump used an auto pen to pardon.
Come on.
But we do know that he didn't know who that crypto guy was.
Well, I'm sorry. You know, the hardest thing about this job now is no one understands nuance. You know when you hear a joke, when somebody's fooling around, when they're not saying something specific, especially on this show.
She's right, but you know, that's sort of what I was saying. Is some of the things even on this side can sound crude, but I think it's just people joking. I can't speak for Whoopi there, but I don't know. We're at weird times. This was an interesting post. Pay attention to the warning signs. Banks are in big trouble. FDIC can't cover it, and the Fed can't fix it. Fiat fractional reserve system is failing, and countries and big players are running for physical gold and silver. They've been selling gold and silver that doesn't exist. So when the music stops and they can't deliver it, exposes the entire Ponzi scheme. Failure to deliver is where everything breaks. So thought I'd throw that in there. Always hearing good things about silver, though. Not that I know much about that particular stuff. So Nigeria is sort of responding to the word that Trump might threaten military action against terrorists killing Christians in Nigeria. And of course, like always, he makes the claim that nobody's killing any Christians in Nigeria. It's just not happening, my friend.
Well, for a clearer understanding, let's turn to Ebenezer Obadare, the Douglas Dillon Senior Fellow for Africa Studies at the Council on Foreign Relations in Washington, D.C. Thanks so much for joining us, Ebenezer. You're very well positioned as a as a Nigerian academic living in the United States. And I'm just curious about your immediate first reaction when you came across those Donald Trump Truth Social posts saying that he might target Nigeria. What did you think to yourself?
So there were two posts. The first one, the one on Saturday, was about designating Nigeria as a country of particular concern. If you've been paying attention to the kind of mobilization that has been going on over the past few weeks, you will not be surprised by that. I expected it, I saw it coming, so I wasn't surprised when the president made the pronouncement. But the one that really caught me napping was the announcement by President Trump that is considering taking unilateral action, military action against Nigeria. I find that surprising because I thought that insofar as the president has been correct in his diagnosis of the problem of jihadist terror in Nigeria, the solution that he appears to be leaning towards, which is going into Nigeria unilaterally without the imprimatur of the Nigerian authorities, is the wrong move and is bound to be counterproductive.
But he's saying,
in my opinion, it just sort of connects to his work that he's doing to clean up terrorists around the world, or what you would call terrorist organizations like Boko Haram. And, it talks about that here. The United States, under the admin of Trump, has issued an official warning. Could include ground deployment, selective airstrikes if the Nigerian government fails to halt the violence. In recent months, multiple international organizations have reported an increase in killings and kidnappings of Christians in northern and central Nigeria, many carried out by terrorist groups such as Boko Haram and ISWIP, Islamic State West Africa province. Trump warned that unless immediate measures are taken, the U.S. will suspend all economic and military aid and impose sanctions for violations of religious freedom. So that would be the first move, I would think, before you see any military action. He'll stop the economic aid and military aid. He'll hit them with sanctions, stuff like that. He can use tariffs for bargaining. We'll see what happens. I think right now it's a warning, and he'll see if things change in Nigeria. But there's a lot of people in Nigeria. It's very poor and very corrupt. And so we'll have to see. And Mexico seems about as corrupt right now. Sheinbaum says says that the United States won't attack cartels on Mexican soil, which seems a bit presumptive of her.
This condemnable coward, vile homicide of Carlos Manzo, mayor of Uruapan. First, we condemn the homicide. Second, our solidarity and condolences go to the family, to their loved ones. Yesterday, we were in contact with the family. All investigations are being carried out, in addition to the arrests that were made and the person who was killed at the same time, and the arrests, all investigations are being carried out by the Mycocan prosecutor's office. And
she's talking about the mayor that was killed by the cartel, and people there feel like she's not doing enough to go after them or planning to go after them at all.
Well, Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum has vowed to hunt down those behind the brazen killing of Carlos Manzo, the mayor of the city of Uruapan. Manzo was assassinated in front of dozens of onlookers at a festival in his hometown and have sparked large protests. It's the latest in a long line of killings of Mexican politicians who'd spoken out against organised crime.
Mayor Carlos Manzo mingles with the crowd at a Day of the Dead festival in Uruapan's historic plaza, moments before he is shot. Surrounded by his security detail, the mayor was struck 7 times and died of his wounds in hospital. Authorities say the attacker, who has yet to be identified, was killed at the scene. On the day of his funeral, demonstrators marched through the city calling for justice.
People are not very happy. So Claudia Sheinbaum talks a very good game, but that's about all she does. Me? Oh, I definitely know that Christians are being killed over there. They're absolutely 100% being killed over there. The president of Nigeria keeps telling people that there's no Christians being killed. That's what he keeps saying. And we know better than that. We know that's not true at all. So they had kept telling us about arming these IRS agencies, 87,000 IRS agents, but now the Department of Homeland Security is asking for their help with the migrant raids. So might they actually end up armed agents for a different task?
Crossing moments ago, IRS agents could soon be going on immigration raids. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem asking the Treasury Department to deputize their agents to help arrest and remove migrants from the United States. So far, no response on this plan from the Treasury.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm sure they don't want to do it, but I don't think it's up to anybody but Scott Bessent and somebody else. I can't remember. All right, moving on here. Wasn't that thing with Erica Kirk in the intro kind of weird? I kind of stumbled on that video. I don't know what to make of it. Showing her as being deceased. They only come after you when you speak the truth. Charlie Kirk was killed because he spoke the truth and started to wake people up. Now they're going after Tucker Carlson for speaking the same truth right where Charlie left off. And we saw that yesterday with Randy Fine and saying he's the most dangerous Semite in America. MAGA means make America great again, not a foreign country. So how is Tucker not MAGA? Josh Hammer mentioned public execution. Charlie was publicly executed the next day. Josh Hammer says that Tucker Carlson needs to be neutralized. It sounds like that Joe Biden word we just heard. Neutralize people. We need to neutralize the Americans. It might be a problem. That sounds like us. That sounds like you and me. Neutralize. They're also trying to tell you in the media that President Trump's ignoring federal court orders and that he's going to stop the SNAP benefits in full for recipients during the shutdown, but that's also not the case. He did say this SNAP benefits, which increased by billions and billions, manyfold, during crooked Joe Biden's disastrous term in office due to the fact that they were haphazardly handed to anyone for the asking as opposed to just those in need, which is the purpose of SNAP, will be given only when the radical left Democrats open up the government, which they can easily do, and not before. And not long after that, they sort of changed their tune on it.
Administration is fully complying with the court order. I just spoke to the president about it. The recipients of these SNAP benefits need to understand it's going to take some time to receive this money because the Democrats have forced the administration into a very untenable position. We are digging into a contingency fund that is supposed to be for emergencies, catastrophes, for war. And the president does not want to have to tap into this fund in the future. And that's what he was referring to in his Truth Social post. So the Department of Agriculture, as for the latest SNAP payment in the judge's order, put out guidance to states today on how to get that money to the recipients of SNAP. But it's going to take some time. The best way to get the full amount of SNAP benefits to those beneficiaries is for Democrats to reopen the government. So to anyone who is a SNAP beneficiary at home who needs that assistance, and the president was just saying, this is for people who are truly needy, who need food, who need this assistance from the United States government. Democrats are holding it up and making it difficult for the administration to get those payments out the door. So if you are at home and you want your SNAP benefits, call the Democrats and tell them to reopen the government.
Yeah, so it sounds like there's the possibility that people might get it later than normal because they're digging into a fund. They probably got to figure out how they disperse it and all that, but I think it's handled. I don't think it's anything to worry about. I really don't think they ever intended to do it that way, just to put pressure on the Democrats is why I assume they did it. The FBI arrested 2 men in connection with the Harvard Medical School explosion. They had put out pictures just the other day. Oh, and I gotta jump ahead.
Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. This morning, 2 arrests were made in connection with an explosion that occurred on the campus of the Harvard Medical School in Boston on Saturday, November 1st at 2:45 a.m. 18-year-old Logan David Patterson and 20-year-old Dominique Frank Cardoza were taken into custody early this morning and charged for their alleged involvement in the explosion. According to the charging documents, at approximately 2:33 a.m. on November 1st, surveillance cameras captured 2 suspects wearing face coverings, walking near the medical school, and lighting what appeared to be a Roman candle fireworks. Approximately 10 minutes later, the defendants were allegedly seen climbing scaffolding on the side of 220 Longwood Avenue and accessing the roof. A short time later, campus police were alerted to a fire alarm from an explosion on the 4th floor of the building, which houses a research laboratory for Harvard Medical School's Department of Neurobiology. Security videos showed the defendants allegedly exiting the building through a first-floor emergency exit and fleeing the area in opposite directions between 12:45 and 2:50 a.m.
Why would they want to blow up the neuro lab at Harvard, the research lab? Go blow up the place where they're, testing on the beagles, all right? Don't do that. Don't do that. Yeah. Moving forward. Ukrainian drones reached deep inside Russia, and there was... I don't know if I'd say a surprise counterattack, but what they're doing is trying to stop Russia's oil supply because it's a big part of their economy.
Ukrainian drone attacks have damaged a key petrochemical plant deep inside Russia and reportedly taken out power substations, causing blackouts. The head of the Bashkortostan region posted on Telegram that the water treatment works partially collapsed at the Sterlitama chemical facility, which lies 1,500 kilometers from the Ukrainian border. Ukraine has recently ramped up long-range drone attacks on Russian energy and industrial facilities. Elsewhere, the Kyiv Post reports that a fire broke out at an electrical substation in the southwestern Volgograd region on Monday evening following a drone attack. Power cuts reportedly affected the town of Frolovo and nearby areas.
So, that's sort of why they were talking yesterday about how they wouldn't be surprised if Putin just suddenly attacks Kiev to end it, because Ukraine keeps trying to strike their oil refineries and oil facilities, and I don't know. We'll see how far that goes. You know the whole plan there. The Department of Justice defends Trump Truth Social post as Comey seeks to have his case dismissed. That's never going to happen, is it? The Department of Justice urged the federal court to reject James Comey's bid to dismiss his case, arguing that his claims of selective prosecution are unfounded. In the 48-page filing, they also denied that Trump's September Truth Social post calling on U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi to prosecute prominent political adversaries, including Comey, had any influence on the decision to bring charges. They've tried to push that for a while. These posts reflect the president's view that the defendant has committed crimes that should be met with prosecution. They may even suggest that the president disfavors the defendant, but they are not direct evidence of a vindictive motive, according to the prosecutors. The defendant spins a tale that requires leaps of logic and a big dose of cynicism. Yeah. Comey's all cynicism. Yeah. Moving forward. Seems like a weird time for allergy season. Maybe I'm wrong, but Texas is going through such a spark of allergy season today that people were told to stay indoors in Longview, Texas, facing potentially harmful levels of air pollution in the early hours of Tuesday morning. Air pollution. Is that common in Texas? I know some of you are from Texas. Come on. Fill me in. It seems odd to me. I guess that's not allergies, but it's a little different. EPA mapping showed levels of fine particle pollution in the unhealthy category across an area of northeast Texas, encompassing locales including Jefferson, Harleton, Marshall, and Scottsville. When air quality reaches these levels, the guidance advises sensitive groups to avoid long or intense outdoor activities or to consider rescheduling or moving indoors. Particles of what are floating around the air, Texas? Don't like the sound of that. In Iran, people are celebrating the mark of the anniversary of the 1979 takeover of the U.S. Embassy in Tehran. I'm sure some of you remember that debacle. Yeah, of all the things you would think they would find to celebrate about. This was an arrest of a guy that was tied to this motorcycle gang, the Banditos Outlaw Motorcycles gang. He was arrested and charged with possession of body armor by a felon and a third-degree felony. Additional charges are pending. They found 33 firearms, 2 body armor vests, a whole load of stuff in this raid that happened. And the funny thing is, I don't know where that is. It said Bexar County, which I'd never heard of. And then in the next story, Bexar County comes up again. Student finds gun at the edge of Harlan High School campus in northwestern Bexar County. I guess it's been a busy day in that county.
Welcome back to GMSA Plus, streaming on the KSAT Plus app at 7:12 on this Tuesday morning. So we want to let you know about this incident where a gun was found on campus at Harlan High School. This all happened yesterday. We reached out to Northside ISD about this, and their spokesperson.
Okay, I'm just thinking, if they raided a clubhouse of bikers and then the next day a kid finds a gun on campus, maybe a biker was on the run and tossed his gun. I don't know. Just doing a little detective work there. Palantir CEO Alex Karp says if fentanyl were killing 60,000 Yale grads instead of working class Americans, the United States would drop a nuclear bomb on whoever was sending it. He says open borders are destroying poor communities and that elites show sympathy only for their own while ordinary Americans die. Yeah, it's weird to see him suddenly turn. Has he been beaten into submission too? We already know they're part of the people that donated to the ballroom and stuff, the new people running your artificial intelligence and stuff. And a United flight was grounded at Reagan National Airport just across the Potomac today.
Breaking right now, we are taking a live look at Reagan National Airport in Washington, D.C., where the FAA has issued a ground stop after a reported security issue. That's according to Reuters. That report flight tracking site Flight Radar 24 found the stop was triggered by an unconfirmed threat to a United flight that had just arrived from Houston. We're showing you two angles of that plane.
I just thought that story was odd. It popped up. I haven't seen anything more about it. Maybe they've got a better idea of what happened now. So I will look for an update on that. The Alien documentary comes out November 21st, and people are expecting it to be pretty revealing. If you don't remember what it's about, we had looked at the trailer at one point.
We've had repeated instances of something operating in the airspace over restricted nuclear facilities, and it's not ours.
These are otherworldly things that are performing maneuvers that haven't been seen.
They have both deactivated and activated nuclear weapons.
They're invading our airspace, and we don't know exactly why they're doing it, what their intent is, and what their capabilities are.
Many of them connected with ranges out west, notably Area 51.
Yeah, you know, as far as that fentanyl stuff goes, I mean, Trump's done great things with getting China to start acting and whatnot. You guys excited about the Alien documentary? It might just be pretty revealing. They're talking about aliens shutting off nuclear weapons. Stories we've heard for a long time and never really knew if they were building a truth or not. But funny enough, at the same time all that's happening, some Space Force videos came out.
What's going on in America right now? Just look to Space Force. If you understand Space Force, you understand what's going on right now in America. The first thing you need to know about Space Force is, of course, it was Donald Trump who put Space Force together. And by the way, it's not pew, 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 pew. We're not talking about that. It manages the Ethernet, the space, and all communications. The best way to describe it from what's going on here, and I'm going to try to do it as fast as I can here, it's like before Space Force, the bad guys had motorcycles, and the good guys, us, we had mopeds. Now, the bad guys still have their motorcycles, but we have these really, really, really fast jet speed motorcycles. We can catch up with them in communication and understand what they were trying to do before America's enemies, and now we know. Okay, the one thing I want to talk to you about that really quick is that you have to have faith and trust in Space Force. Just like anything else, we have faith in our military.
Yeah, and I imagine they're a part of the reason why we have it all.
Hey, do you know that Space Force was never created for outer space? It wasn't meant for outer space. It was meant for cyberspace. We got them all. We got them all.
It's about cyberspace the whole time. Hey, be good. Be good, doggies. Be good, doggies. It's funny. The two of them get along, and then one of them does not get along yet. Interesting stuff, though, right? Cyberspace. And that's another thing we've heard before, but it's good to review these things. Also happening here in November, on the 6th, our First Lady Melania Trump will be receiving the Patriot of the Year award at the Fox Nation Patriot Awards. So that'll be interesting to see and see what all they have. They're going to have other awards and stuff, apparently. Never heard of it, but it'll be interesting. And Stephen Miller responded today about, Trump staff living on military bases.
The Democrat Party has become dangerously, violently radicalized. And you're right, Sean. I get death threats every day. My wife gets death threats every day. We've obviously had to deal with pretty extensive doxing campaigns. But the truth is, Sean, that people across the country, across the government, across law enforcement, who are fighting for safety, security, prosperity, are dealing with radical left communist threats and attacks all day long. And President Trump, of course, came within centimeters of being assassinated.
1 millimeter.
During the middle of his rally on live television by a wicked, evil assassin, and then only weeks later, a second assassin. If not for a Secret Service agent spotting the barrel of that gun, would have taken President Trump's life, saved by the hand of God himself. We are dealing with a party that is so extreme that considers its opponents to be its mortal enemies, that dehumanizes its opposition, that justifies violent attacks against federal law enforcement, assaults against ICE and Border Patrol, that sides over and over again with criminal aliens, MS-13 gangbangers. Look at how they venerated and worshipped and praised the MS-13 child smuggler that they dubbed the Maryland Dad, somebody who beat his wife and smuggled children and was a member of a terrorist organization, and they held him up as their hero. This is a dangerous party. This is a dangerous movement. And what you're seeing in New York City with Mamdani, that is the future. A party that believes in no bail, a party that believes in no jail, a party that believes in no borders. But here's one group they do want to put in jail, their political enemies.
So, I mean, between the death threats from the left and the hits that are put out on them from the cartel, that's why they're staying in the bases. They have families. They're protecting their families at this point. That's how chaotic things are getting. And, you know, it's only going to get probably more chaotic for a time. I don't mean to sound like the panicans. It's not a panikin, but you know what I'm saying. It's not anything to be nervous about or worried about in that matter. House Speaker from Minnesota, Lisa DeMuth, just announced she's running for governor, taking on Tim Walz. It's good to see somebody is. We need somebody in Illinois. This Democrat from North Carolina, Cecil Brockman, was arrested and charged with statutory rape of a minor. He's going to be released after his bail was reduced. That's disgusting. The more we learn about the Biden FBI spying scandal, the more Americans' worst fears about the deep state are being confirmed. I thought that was an interesting post from Marsha Blackburn. And she's right. Candace Owens says she's not voting until we learn the truth about who killed Charlie. Literally do not care how anybody feels about that, not lifting one finger. Yeah, she's clearly very upset, to say the least. The U.S. has launched an ICBM across the Pacific, and no, it has nothing to do with Trump's new nuclear testing plans. Apparently, we do this quite a bit.
So at approximately 1 a.m. Pacific time on February 19th, a joint team of Air Force Global Strike Command Airmen and Vandenberg Space Force Base Guardians launched an unarmed Minuteman III intercontinental ballistic missile equipped with a single telemeter joint test assembly re-entry vehicle from Vandenberg Space Force Base. The primary testing ground for the Air Force Global Strike Command's ICBM deterrent architecture. The test launch was part of a routine and periodic activities designed to demonstrate that the United States nuclear deterrent remains safe, secure, reliable, and effective in deterring 21st century threats and reassuring our allies. The 377th Test and Evaluation Group located at Vandenberg Space Force Base were the ones that oversaw the test launch. It is the nation's only dedicated intercontinental ballistic missile test organization that is professionally executing tests that accurately measure the current and future capability of the intercontinental ballistic missile force.
Apologies if we're a little fuzzy. I don't know, but it seems like my system keeps going in and out today. Go figure. A fourth person has died at Disney World in less than 1 month. That doesn't sound like a good sign, huh?
Another death occurred on Walt Disney World property Sunday, and this marks the fourth one in a month. Florida's Orange County Sheriff's Office tells a woman in her 40s was transported to Celebration Hospital where she passed away. There were no signs of foul play. There were 3 previous deaths at Walt Disney World over the last month, 2 of which were apparent suicides. A 31-year-old woman died by suicide at Disney's Contemporary Resort October 14th. Then, a week later, a man in his 60s died after suffering a medical episode at Disney's Fort Wilderness Resort and Campground. Last week, another death was reported. A 28-year-old man identified as Matthew Cohn, who also died by suicide at the Contemporary.
And these were just at Disney World in Florida. Back at Disneyland in California, a guest was found unresponsive on the Haunted Mansion ride on October 8th. Paramedics responded and the woman in her 60s was pronounced dead at a hospital. So far, no word back from Disney.
I can sort of understand a few of those deaths, but 2 suicides. I mean, who goes to Disney World and commits suicide? I still don't get that. I don't understand it. I didn't understand it when the story came out a week or so ago. Weird. So a man was accused of threatening to kill members of Congress today. This in Philadelphia.
Right now at 4:30, breaking news from our nation's capital. A Pennsylvania man under arrest, accused of threatening to kill a member of Congress. The suspect identified as 43-year-old Richard Griffin. Capitol Police say he was stopped before going through security at the Senate office building. Police say he does have a history of emailing government officials. Now, our Hearst, Washington Bureau is also looking into this, and we'll bring you more information as we get it.
Okay, not Philadelphia, the capital. Missed that. And another interesting story right here from Illinois. A man was charged with threatening to kill President Trump.
A Lake County, Illinois man faced a judge accused of threatening to kill President Trump.
It was here at a now quiet ranch in north suburban Winthrop Harbor where Secret Service members and a SWAT team took 57-year-old Trent Schneider into custody on Monday. In a hearing that went on for about a half an hour, Schneider was charged with making a true threat to injure another person, President Trump. According to court records, Schneider posted a video of himself several weeks ago making several threats, some that included death threats against President Trump. He also referenced getting, quote, a lot of guns. Schneider is now accused of threatening to kill the President of the United States. Now, Schneider is expected back in court on November 6th for a detention hearing. He will remain in federal custody until then. If eventually convicted, he could face up to 5 years in federal prison.
I wonder what people will say about that, the ones who are talking about free speech. Does that cross the line? Talking about we're going to kill the president and get guns and stuff. Does that cross the line of free speech? We've got to draw that line. Only we can do it. We got to stop letting foreign nations and the government do it. We got to figure it out. It's something we have to figure out. So this is pretty big. The Supreme Court case tomorrow is literally life or death for our country. With a victory, we have tremendous but fair financial and national security. Without it, we're virtually defenseless against other countries who have for years taken advantage of us. Our stock market is consistently hitting record highs, and our country has never been more respected than it is right now. Big part of this economic security created by the tariffs and the deals that we've negotiated because of them. And reading further, The Hill wrote about how the Supreme Court case could redefine his presidency. They're going to hear oral arguments tomorrow. Remember the 5th of November, right? The biggest Supreme Court case all at the same time. The justices will take up Learning Resources Incorporated versus Trump, and the question behind it is huge. Can a president declare a national emergency whenever he wants to set his own economic policy? That's the question. Beginning in 2025, Trump used a Cold War-era statute called the International Emergency Economic Powers Act to impose tariffs on everyday goods. The law was written in 1977 to let presidents act fast in actual crises, freezing terrorist assets, cutting off hostile regimes. So, the point is, we are in a whole different kind of emergency, I'm pretty sure, than they're talking about. So can they even do anything about it? I suppose all that gets revealed tomorrow, maybe. I suppose it may not be tomorrow. I don't know how far the case will go, how long it takes. But as far as what Trump's talking, it's a pretty big day. And Mike Johnson seems to have turned on MAGA or flip-flopped. I don't know. He's condemning Nick Fuentes, calling him blatantly anti-Semitic, racist, and anti-American, and went after Tucker Carlson for giving him attention. I got to say, I didn't see that one coming. Yeah. We have been sold out by our politicians for a long time. They've killed off the middle class. Little towns like mine in Illinois, far away from the city, we ran off factories and small businesses. Once they got rid of the factories by keeping the business tax high, more and more people had to shop at your Walmart type places. And so small businesses died off. And this is literally how they killed the small town American city, or town, I guess. Small town America, the middle class. And it happened for decades, and nobody lowered the business tax. And now Trump is bringing back this, manufacturing and stuff. But where we're going with it's going to be a lot different than people think. That's why Elon Musk tells you the future is autonomous. We're going to have these robots doing some of that work. In Louisville, come on, say it with me now. Louisville, Kentucky. Louisville, you can say it. A UPS cargo plane crashed near the international airport. Incident has been reported near the airport. A shelter in place has been issued for those within a 5-mile radius of the airport. Remain away from the area until further notice. I'm going to have to see if there's been further notice. Let's see. All right. Might be an update here. I do find it interesting that it issued a shelter in place for 5-mile radius. I wonder what was in the cargo plane. I don't think UPS carries that much, but let's take a look real quick. What the fuck was that?
This is the quickest way to clear out stuck poop.
The number one
This
food
is
for
why I
regular
don't
beef.
advertise.
Serious crash now back east in Kentucky. Live pictures here. A plane crash near the UPS World Port facility just outside of Louisville, Kentucky. So again, live pictures. Responders reported an explosion and smoke at the scene, and you can see it. Fire spread out over, looks like an area several acres large. And look at that. Dozens, if not hundreds, of emergency vehicles there. Injuries have been confirmed by the Louisville Metro Police Department. So far, no other details are available. The one detail we do have, Tram, is we understand this was a UPS plane. Generally, those are cargo planes with a pilot and a co-pilot and not much other crew. So you hope the loss of life. I mean, look at how big that scene is.
The images are just horrifying here. And what you don't see out of this picture that we saw earlier was nearby, there was a very large building that just looked like it just something just tore through it. The top of the ceiling was just looked like it was ripped apart, and perhaps maybe a part of the plane either fell through the building or maybe it skidded across the building and landed where you see there. But truly, this is just devastating here. I mean, this spans miles, it looks like. And
look at the cars in the parking lot that are all on fire now.
Yeah.
And extremely unusual. We can't see a runway
that's nearby, but there must be one because this is a large headquarters for UPS, and obviously they do much of their work in the air when they're talking about national deliveries and things.
I wonder if it was just full on fuel. That's a massive scene. Glad to hear the reporter from Kentucky say Louisville the right way. But that's wild, and we'll keep an eye out for updates as we go on tonight. President Trump just announced Jared Isaacman will serve as administrator for NASA. Comes at the same time that Sean Duffy's ordering NASA to release the images of 3I Atlas. We'll have to see what happens with that, too. Will this guy, once he takes over NASA, comply with Sean Duffy? About the same time we get that Alien documentary from Marco Rubio and all those guys, Dan Crenshaw. It's almost like we're getting, what's the word, Come on, what's the word? We're learning things, mind blank. And Brandon Gill has filed articles of impeachment against Judge James Boasberg, who I believe is handling James Comey's case, and probably a few others. So we'll see where that impeachment article goes. Wild, huh? All right. And that's our news for the moment. We're going to take a look at something again tonight, like always. Another well-loved channel on Rumble has come back to YouTube, and we're going to look at an interview they did a day or two ago, and it's such odd timing because it sounds like you're right from what I've looked at on here. I can't find Derek Johnson's channel, so he must have gotten in some kind of trouble with YouTube, and I'm kind of surprised about that, I have to say. So, funny enough, he's the one being interviewed here in this video we're going to take a look at. This is the channel Up Front in the Prophetic. It's a great channel. I always kind of forget about it, but she does amazing interviews. She's got a video about the med beds too, right here on, hang on, I want to pull it up. On YouTube. Boom, 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 boom. Pull up her channel. That's the YouTube channel. And I want to show you a little bit of her Derek Johnson interview, but you should definitely go over there, subscribe, and check out her video on med beds. Are they real or not? Let's see what Derek Johnson's saying right now.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining us on Upfront in the Prophetic. We're so blessed that you are here. Oh my goodness, another day. It seems like the years are just flying past, but I have my brother from another mother, Derek Johnson, with us. If you guys don't know who he is, shame on you. Oh my gosh, you can find him on Twitter, Facebook, Rumble, basically everywhere. And it's a good person to really latch onto for information on what's going on. So a little bit about him. He's a veteran, influencer, and a musician, and so much more. And we're going to talk about basically, we all can feel it, the spiritual warfare that's out there. For every believer and every patriot, this is a time where you need discernment. Discernment is key. And I'm hearing a little feedback, and I just rebuke that in the name of Jesus. Come on now. But discernment is key for this time and season. And we're also noticing that misinformation is at an all-time high. It's hard to believe anyone, really. I mean, who's good, who's bad? Is this all a show? Well, we're going to go ahead and tap into that. So without further ado, Derek Johnson, how are you, my brother?
Well, I'm doing all right. Just day by day, you know.
I know, right? Well, that's how we need to take it. And I know for you, just the attacks that have been coming your way from the north, south, east, and west, and we prayed a little bit beforehand, and I'm really gonna stand on that. And Alan and I will stand in the gap with you that no weapon shall prosper, no weapon. And, you know, there's so much jealousy within, you know, the influencers out there, you know, oh, hey, I got the intel today, you know, you copied me. And, you know, it's just so stupid. It's like, and I really believe that this is what, you know, the enemy really wanted to begin with, is let's get everybody against each other. You know, you have the race card. Now you have like who's got the best intel, you know, and oh, I got this many people and you only got that many people. Hey, come on now, brothers and sisters, it's time to come together, right? And stand, pray, and then be that voice like you are. You are a huge voice out there, and a lot of people listen to you. You've actually were the first one that brought up law, you know, the laws and orders, you know, continuity. I mean, the whole military aspect, because a lot of people, most people don't realize that the civilian life and the military life, yes, I mean, what you see, you can tell there's a difference, but even by the laws, there's a huge difference. And a lot of people, you know, just don't grasp that. But I wanted to kind of go into, you know, this whole thing in regards to the operation that we're in. I remember, you know, Trump mentioning about the final battle. Do you believe that we are truly in the final battle in 2024?
Well, yes. And then pairing with that is that, you know, real quick, if I can jump back to what you just said there about the whole, you know, the competition type stuff that people try to make this, is that I was on the other side of the fence just 2 years ago. I was sitting praying to God what his direction was for me, because I had 2 billboard hits. 2 billboard hits don't sound like a lot to some people that's never had them. You'd think that they would. My dentist the other day, I come in there and he's like, you know, man, that's a fancy buckle. And I said, man, you know, Cowboys, that's the only thing fancy about a Cowboy is their buckle, if you got one. And it's my buckle that was awarded to me by certain people with my billboard hits. And it's just what Cowboys do. They wear it on a buckle. They wear whatever that accolade is. And I said, well, you know, I just have 2 billboard hits. And he said, well, that's 2 more than me, you know. So, you know, and 2 years ago, 3 years ago, but of course, those were 2020 and 2021 when I had those. And I mean, you know, you dream your whole life, or I did, of hitting billboards, seeing my name with George Strait and all my honky tonk heroes back then. Of course, a lot of them are retired now. So the names I saw myself next to wasn't someone I necessarily, you know, dreamed to see my name next to. I never dreamed to see my name next to Luke Bryan or Morgan Wallen or someone like that. They didn't exist back then. Right. But, you know, I did get to see it go past Sammy Kershaw and George Strait and people like that. So you're like, man, this is the thing. But if you don't get into the top 20, it's not published to the world. And they stopped publishing top 30, top 40. So now they only publish top 20. So if you're not in the top 20, the country music fans don't see that. So, you know, you can spend your whole life doing what I did. And I mean, I try to make videos go viral, like music videos. Hey, I wrote a new song today. Check this one out. And it would be like, I wrote a song with Casey Beathard, one of the biggest hit writers in Nashville. And a patriot, by the way. But Casey and I wrote a song about domestic violence. And you'd have thought a song like that with a big hit writer. I mean, we're talking about the same guy who wrote Don't Blink by Kenny Chesney. She Thinks We're Just Fishing, Trace Atkins. Life's Not the Breath You Take, George Strait. it maybe got 5 shares. And that's the reality around the world we live in. If you have something that people resonate with, they'll share it. And little did I know that getting on a video Facebook Live in the middle of nowhere one day and just saying, hey, the obvious, and if people will go back, my passion that day wasn't really necessarily around that Donald Trump is still your president, commander-in-chief, because of the war codes he put in, more than he's still president too. I mean, so that's where people try to separate those. I separated them only because of the military justice side. But when you look at military, the absolute end of military, the absolute being the key word, is when people give their lives in that uniform, what we call the ultimate sacrifice. And we have so many memorial graves all over this nation that they didn't get to live their lives. 17, 18, 19 years old is the predominant number of those ages. And then with the, except, a little outlier, some, 30-year-olds, 35, et cetera. But the majority of those were 17, 18, 19 years old. They gave it all. Yeah. And so that's where my passion was that, come on, people, the military life is completely separate. You don't have to understand it, but you can. Right. And then laws and orders, not all laws and orders are great. I agree with that. Not all legislation is great. But legislation is what Congress has used for and against us. Right. And if you stop learning legislation, which is the key 3 words of the Declaration of Independence, we the people equals we the government. We're the government. They work for us. The Constitution wasn't written to put us in check, the people. It was written to keep them in check by us. So at the point Americans stop learning legislation, laws and orders, then you're doomed, because if you come into a legislator, someone who writes a law, all right, you come into them, you go to your congressman, you get a meeting with them, and you go in there all kinds of cussing and acting and sounding ignorant, they're not going to listen to you. Right. So if you come in there knowing legislation, even if you're 110% against everything, at least if you know it, you'll sound educated and intelligent. There's a huge difference in those, but you'll sound intelligent when you walk in there. Even if you don't have an education, you can say, hey, I don't like this. I don't like this. How did this get here? What can we do to fix this? Well, then legislators have to have a majority too to change a law, as we know, 2/3 of a vote to change certain things. So, when people know their simple form of how we function and operate in the U.S., then that's where the power of your voice becomes powerful, no matter what side of the aisle you're on. Mm-hmm. And that's what gets me about certain people, is that they want to argue and fuss. That's what we've been doing for 100 years, 150 years, really, if you want to go back to the Organic Act. But for the last 60 years, you could probably just put a real good stamp on it. Since JFK, things just went drastically downhill. And they pinned us against our core values, right? Being patriotic, being religious, and any other thing. But patriotism is probably the worst. But then racism, so those 3 big topics, race, religion, and then patriotism, they pinned us all against each other. So how do you break that? You go back to the basics. If I've told people when I came shot out the gate, I expected people to hold me off at a distance, because there's a lot of people out there. But what I show are your basic core principles of the United States, the foundation. And you got to look at the Constitution, how it was written, when it was written, why it was written. You can't take it today and say, well, I want it this way, that way, because there's still a majority of people who want it as the original context. And it was supposed to be amended along the way. It has been. There's a lot of amendments. So that's the thing that gets me, I think, the most when people want to argue, debate, fuss, gripe, complain. You just say, name the 3 branches of government. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I always do to them. I say, 1, did you vote? 2, name the 3 branches of government, because data shows 68% of America can't even name the 3 branches of government. So if you can't name the 3, how can you talk about laws, legislation, and what's going on? Because the 3 branches write the laws, pass the laws, and interpret the laws. And you don't have to be a politician. a lawyer or any kind of scholar or veteran to know legislation. And, you just have to be willing to read. I tell people all the time, this is your Department of Education right here, right between their ears. That's your Department of Education. And you have to be willing to read it. Now, it's going to be difficult if you've never seen the terms in the glossary before, but that's where you start. If you struggle with the terms and glossary, then start there. If you don't struggle with the terms and glossary, then start with the basics of what's been put into place right now.
Yeah, it's a shame that they don't even teach that or never have taught it, and especially, I mean, when I went to school, that was a long time ago. About the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, or any of that, So, and I think, of course, that they did that intentionally, so that the people would be, brainless in regards to their rights as we the people. But you, I believe, have been appointed and anointed to give that information, and I pray that people are taking heed to that. You mentioned several things. I mean, in regards to the Billboard, being two hits, and you just did a song with, and I'll get back to the other question originally, but you just did a patriotic song with Billy Falcon too, didn't you?
We did. We've written quite a few now. I've got one more that we're going to put out that I hadn't vocally recorded it yet. We did the full session and everything, but yeah, we got the one out there of if you want to fight, you got one. So we got that one, and just a couple more we're working on.
I love it. Looking forward to hearing them for sure. And of course, again, before I get to the question I previously asked, your new book. I mean, the books are flying off the shelf, aren't they?
Yeah, they are, and it's been quite a journey with that too. We decided to self-publish just to see what we could do with my base alone, and it's been a blessing so far. But we did the pre-order option, so there's a few that got a little agitated there because they felt like you swiped my credit card and it's been a month. I said it's a pre-order option,
right?
So we had to pre-order with no inventory, so that means that we had to meet a goal to get to the goal, and then when we got to the goal, then we could print the books, and then we had to wait for the books with the company that we went for. So it's been a little. We're catching up. I think we've got about 700 going out today. Matter of fact, on top of 3,000 more that were supposed to go out, I think, a couple of days ago. So I think we're up to that'll be about 6,700, 6,800. That's like out, and I think we have maybe 3,000 more. I don't know. I haven't looked, but so we're approaching 10,000 overall between
That's
Amazon
awesome.
and all the others. So it's like pretty cool. And we did put it on Amazon finally because Shopify's system, man, I mean, you have to code every city in every country for international shipping. It is the most craziest thing you've ever seen in your life. So Amazon, you just put in one little number and it calculates all of them for you. So, if you're international, you have to pay a little more because Amazon's costs are, they're
ridiculous.
I see now why businesses, I've seen Shark Tank a lot, and they'll say, "Are you on Amazon?" They're like, "Man, like our cost now is this, and to get on Amazon, we have to raise it to this just to meet any kind of a margin to be able to print other stuff and to keep it on." So anyway, I don't know how John Grisham and some of them would have made it in today's world. Harper Lee, any big author out there, they wouldn't have made it if they only had Amazon. But
sure,
I guess it's like Walmart. You got to be on their shelf, but it's just the
Midnight Rider rides again. So
what, got it right here. Yes, forgot. It's right here.
I love the cover. I mean, that is so sharp. It pops out, really. It really does.
I mean, it's really.
And look how thick it is too.
Well, this is an 8.5 by 11 too, so we did it where people could not have to struggle with font size and things of that nature. And then we put trying to find a great example of the timeline. What I did, the timeline is really key because I'm trying to find a great example. So like that, we put it to where you can see the dates. I go in chronological order.
Awesome.
I just did chronological order from 2015 all the way to present. They had to cut off. So I had to cut off at December. So I'm at December. So I'll pick up. There will be a finale of it whenever.
All right, we're going to check out something else since that seems to be outdated. This popped up on Rumble from the other day. Let's look.
All right, folks, welcome to Nino's Corner.tv. I got one of your favorites back up on. It's SG. Anon's in the house. SG, thank you so much for joining me. Man, we were talking before we started recording, and I wanted to talk about the No Kings rallies that are happening today and all the Democrat traitors, basically, and some rhinos pushing for this No Kings, telling people to rise up, get out on the streets. Man, this is just getting wild. And then you started talking about, hey, man, we got to remember, or we got to bring up that Trump has actually just turned his back on Zelensky, right, SG?
Indeed, and I think that's a fantastic point to start the broadcast off with, and thank you for having me back, Nino. The changeover that we've seen in the rhetoric from Moscow, from the Trump administration, from Kiev, as it pertains to this sort of trifecta of power balancing that's going on, I think it's something that a lot of patriots in the U.S. have expected for a long time. We've sort of been eyeballing Trump and Putin's relationship, Trump and Xi's relationship for at least 6 or 7 years pretty critically now. And so now we're seeing effectively what amounts to an alliance of sorts. It's an alliance without being, a verbally proclaimed alliance, showcasing itself out as the White House just today spurned Ukraine's request for long-range Tomahawk missiles. We, of course, know that those missiles would only be operable with U.S. personnel cleared to have those types of access codes and those types of intersections with missile flight control and things of that nature. So I'm not fundamentally surprised that this has occurred, but now we have it publicly declared that we are not going, from the United States perspective, we're not going to enable this terroristic regime in Kiev to continue what they're doing. That's going to go a long way for burgeoning cooperation between nation states when we talk about Russia and the U.S. and between between the U.S. and China, because President Xi and President Putin are very, very well acquainted. And indeed, their war economies are essentially intertwined now at this point along in this journey. We've seen this economic cooperation between Beijing and Moscow now going back really 3 to 4 years in its current iteration. So this improves the dynamics for all of the major power players out there in the world. It sort of neuters or provides yet another obstructive obstacle for those NATO warmongers inside of Europe, and especially there on the ground in Ukraine. And this doesn't even get into the cooperation economically that we're seeing hinted from the presidential envoy, special envoy from the Russian president for foreign investment, Kirill Dmitriev, I think is his name. So it's an incredible time to be alive. We've got the domestic situation happening in the United States continuing to escalate, continuing to ramp up. We've got a Supreme Court case now imminent, some sort of conversation with the Supreme Court about whether or not Trump can utilize the National Guard to go in and protect federal assets inside state territory over and above, and indeed against the will of the governor of that particular state. It's an incredible time to be an American.
It's almost like he's playing cat and mouse with his Zelensky, right? And maybe even Putin. It's just kind of like, yeah, we'll do it. Maybe not. What do you think the tactic is here? Is he playing with him like a cat with a ball of yarn? I mean, you got to know Zelensky right now is breathing fire, and it's almost like he's doing the same thing with Netanyahu. Netanyahu is as well, right? Like he's kind of just letting Netanyahu think he's going to do this, do that, and then Trump pivots and does something else. What's your thoughts on that?
I think my thoughts would be pretty closely in agreement with what you just said. This is clearly a back and forth. This is clearly a game of chicken at some level, where we've got President Trump, saying one thing publicly, and then a week and a half, 2 weeks later, saying something different publicly. And then we have this set of meetings that gets wound down, and another set of meetings gets wound up, and of course, in response to those things. And it's very much a game of misdirection, in my opinion. And one of the things that I find very, very interesting throughout this entire landscape, Nino, that has developed with this misdirective attitude over the last really 2 to 3, maybe even 4 months now, going back to the early summer of this year, this late spring, early summer, is that President Trump has said numerous times that he felt like the war in Ukraine was going to be the easiest one to get resolved, and it turns out to be the hardest. I take that as a communication from the commander-in-chief saying that there's more that needs to be accomplished with respect to data sharing, intelligence sharing, document sharing. We just saw Moscow give the U.S. Congress, through Representative Luna and her various agents, gave the U.S. Congress a full and complete copy of their Soviet records for the assassination of John F. Kennedy. And we've not fully translated these. It's over a 350-page document that was given over, which allegedly includes the entirety of knowledge that the KGB and the Soviet Secret Intelligence and Community Services collected in the lead up to and then in the immediate aftermath, the years immediately following that particular assassination. And once we translate those and get through those here in the United States at the governmental level and make it part of the official record, that's going to affect, in my opinion, a pretty significant lens on how we as Americans view the post-Cold War landscape, how we view our ancestral friends, Russia. And it's worth highlighting for your audience out there, Nino, that once upon a time, prior to the Bolshevik Revolution of 1916, 17, and 18, inside Mother Russia, the United States and the Russian Tsar and the Russian people were very, very close geopolitical allies. We share part of the same territory in the Arctic sphere. For a long time, Russia was a major military and economic power, both in Europe and the Eurasian plain ad hoc. The U.S. President Lincoln actually had a very, very close relationship with Tsar Alexander, I believe was his name. And the Tsar, during the American Civil War, was kind enough to dispatch Russian naval frigates, not to invade the United States, but to protect the port cities from the United States, the major ports on the east and the western seaboards of the United States from an invasion, which they were worried was actually going to come from the Royal Navy. So as we look at what's happening right now, this is a return to the ancestral balances of power that we've always had with one another. This is a return to a transparent conversation, a transparent dialogue between nation states at all different levels. And it is a simultaneous exposure of the secrets that the intelligence community and the deep state apparatus, which we currently are seeing inflaming ground-based riots here in the United States, civil unrest. It's an exposure of that particular conglomerate for what it is and for how long it's been operating and sort of manipulating the puppet strings here in the U.S. American political system. Oh, you're on mute, my friend.
Sorry. So from my understanding from the people that I've talked to, certain guests, it seems to me like obviously we know that the Ukraine is the head of the snake for a lot of the money laundering, deep state, money laundering, biolabs, things of that nature that are in the Ukraine, Biden business deals, the whole thing. But I almost feel like we're getting ready for something pretty big here in America. And I don't know if it's going to be, I just had Christy Hutcherson on talking about the Homeland Security report, claiming that there could be a hit in America by December. We're in that window from October, November, and December, that we are in a window for a big hit. And I almost feel like Trump doesn't want to spread himself thin, sending out all these missiles and defense systems to Ukraine or into the Middle East. It's going to be important to have your resources here in America for what is potentially coming. Does that make sense to you, SG?
Well, it makes total sense. And that's sort of the natural segue of what we were just talking about a moment ago. As we advance these other core arenas of this worldwide cooperative, and as we begin to change and permanently alter the consciousness of these major nation state cultural groups, right? You've got the North American blend, you've got the European blend, you've got the Russian Asian blend, you've got the African blend, these macro consciousness egregores, for lack of a better comparison, that have been created in the last 75 to 100 years, where we have this ancestral this juxtaposition between what we ancestrally know to be true and what this more recent geopolitical period over the last century has caused us to be. As that continues to change, we are going to see the kinetic resistance to that begin to show itself more and more and more aggressively. We've seen a number of additional coups inside the African continent, just as an example, over the last 90 to 120 days, 2 separate governmental coups. We've seen a couple of prior African leaders sentenced to death by African military tribunals for their participation in Washington, D.C. war crimes against their own people internally. And what are they using to do it? They're using Russian dollars and Chinese military equipment. So we're seeing that balance sort of played out, right? At one point in time, you have the intelligence community and the factional components of the West on the ground all over the world operating with essentially impunity because no one had the type of weaponry, the type of economic clout, the ability to resist from a resource standpoint, from an endurance standpoint. And the ones that did have or attempted that resistance, we saw completely wiped out, like Gaddafi in Libya, for example. So as we look at this landscape that's now playing out, there has to be pushback because that game board has changed. The dynamics are completely different. There's now an equal footing, if you will, between these factional sides in these various subcontinent areas, and those are going to come back to what we would call the quote-unquote developed world. And so with the United States of America being a major intersectory point for all worldwide financial markets, with us having a very long historic presence militarily all around the planet and known to have an extremely powerful military force, with us having the type of Second Amendment landscape that we have internally here in the United States, the only country in the world where everyone, as long as you're free of a criminal record and you have adhered to the social compact and not taken lives unnecessarily, everyone gets to go and own a firearm and protect themselves if they so choose. That has to be challenged along in this process. And so as we have talked on this program a number of times, we're seeing that escalating civil unrest. We're seeing that for lack of a better term, the activation of terror cells. And some of those cells are foreign state actors in a militarized fashion. Some of those cells are organized crime domestically. And some of them are just nut jobs that have no idea they are useful cogs in the terrorism machine. And we see that coming from the primarily shut down, brainwashed, gaslit left. So all of these factors now coming together inside the United States, and we're continuing to move forward. We're continuing sort of undeterred, if you will, as an American people to reclaim the government, to shrink big pharma, to shrink the corporate lobby inside of the Congress of the United States, to redistrict certain areas and allow for fair representation. We've just seen in the last 72 to 96 hours, it's been highlighted that the American Northeast, what we would call the New England area of America, has a 30 to 40% vote reflective of Republican balloting, but yet they have zero representation in the Congress. Something is clearly imbalanced and wrong because of that. And so as we seek to change that and all of these other things, these various activations of civil unrest are going to become inadequate. We've seen it started in LA and then it spread to a couple of other cities. We've seen it now recently in Chicago and Baltimore. We're seeing it currently in Portland and Seattle. And these areas of activation of this destabilization or attempted destabilization are simply not doing enough damage to the progress and to the initiative that we have under this current Trump administration. So I fully expect those stakes to get higher. And before this process is over, Nino, we still have to remember that there's all of these executive orders and national emergencies that have to be brought to a conclusion. The emergency has to end. And so one of those executive orders is EO 13224, which is 24 years old as of this past September, just a month ago, this last September of 2025, 24 years running. And that national emergency ties back to the ability of terrorism to finance itself both domestically and internationally. And so because these national emergencies continue forward, and there's others too, like 13848, 13818. We've talked about these different orders a number of different times, but until these emergency conditions are concluded publicly for the world, these emergencies have to stay in place. And we know, if we think about it logically, that we cannot continue ahead as a society in perpetuity under emergency authoritative conditions. There has to be a return to a proper power balance inside the United States of America. And I think the only way to do that is to see some sort of significant attack or some sort of significant destabilization inside the United States that causes our society to pause itself, much in the same vein that we saw with 9/11, 2001, or COVID.
Right. I think that's just right around the corner, SG. I mean, so what they're doing right here, I think, is starting the fires, right? The big event will be the gasoline that hits all the fires. So when you're watching this right here, look at all these very misinformed, ill-informed people. They don't know what's going on. They don't know about the Marxist communist agenda, globalist agenda. They think they're a grassroots movement. These people are completely ill-informed. It's almost like the ignorance just baffles my mind, to be quite honest. It just takes a little bit of research. But it's starting with this, and then I think it heads into what I think chaotic, like it did in the summer. Do you think they are – so it's like the chicken or the egg. Do you think the event happens first where Trump can declare the Insurrection Act, sign the Insurrection Act, or do you think Trump does it beforehand? Obviously, he's sending troops into certain select cities. But, I mean, all this rhetoric right here is from George Soros, Chuck Schumer, Adam Schiff. I mean, why aren't these guys arrested? Now, I know that's a very loaded question, but do we have to let this play out, SG, before an event happens? Do we have to let this all play out?
Well, I think there's a couple of different questions there with that. And I guess the way that I would respond to that is twofold. You brought up these arrests and individuals that we know are complicit in overthrowing the United States government. We know that they're complicit in carrying forward a decades-long insurrection here domestically inside the United States. And in my opinion, I think you're going to see those arrests and much more, but they do have to come at the appropriate time. And also, they have to come in a way that we can extract as much human intelligence, like squeezing the orange completely dry, as we possibly can, because every cog in that insurrection wheel at the political level is going to be able to tell us more about the other cogs. That's one of the reasons I think with John Bolton, for example, someone who has clearly sold state secrets based on his behavior, based on his proximity to the Secretary of State Department, based on his proximity to the Bush White House, the Obama White House, all of these things. This is someone who obviously has been in the fray, profiteering at some level with the compromise of U.S. national security. And he was hit with a number of felony counts, but he was not hit with the big ones. He was not hit with complicity in overthrowing the government or complicity to sell out U.S. national security or things like that. We've seen these charges come under the Espionage Act, which are going to be very, very difficult to defend against. But someone like Bolton is a veritable water faucet of information. Who told you? Where did you get it? Where did the money come from? When did this meeting happen? When did that meeting happen? Who were you with at this particular restaurant in some jurisdiction overseas? What was going on there? Why were you there? What were you telling them about? These types of things that would be more difficult to glean from just the vantage point of U.S. jurisdiction can be extracted from these problematic elements if we're very delicate and very purposeful about it. And when you talk about this insurrection being allowed to play out, right, we do have to go, I think, up to what we would call a precipice moment here inside the United States of America, because you still have, like you're playing on the screen right now, thousands and thousands and thousands of Americans that have no idea that they are caught in the midst of a massive psychological operation that has turned them into unwitting cogs in an insurgency, for lack of a better term.
Right, exactly. So, they're just cogs in the wheel, man.
And so as we see those cogs broken away from the wheel, and I think that happens as we allow it to play out a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more, we are going to see the Insurrection Act invoked. President Trump essentially told us that without telling us that when a reporter asked him questions just about a week and a half ago surrounding the Insurrection Act. And his statement was, if it becomes necessary, then sure, I'll sign it. We have an Insurrection Act for a reason. And your question about whether or not that comes before or after some sort of significant or societally attention-capturing event, I think I'm 50-50 either way on that. I could absolutely see it happening as a response to a massive event or an attempted destabilization inside the United States. But I think it's even more possible. I said 50-50, maybe 60-40 is a better way to say it. I think it's more possible that the Insurrection Act becomes signed because we have obvious civil unrest of an obvious paramilitarized nature that is obviously not coming just from these school campuses or these workplaces or these NGOs, but actually coming from foreign actors and foreign money and foreign finance. And at that point in time, I could very well see that insurrective component turning itself into a full-blown paramilitarized contest against the U.S. National Guard and the U.S. Army domestically. And so as we go through this period of time, this is unprecedented in all of world history because we've never had an invasion by any other means. We've never dealt with an infiltration of the level that would be necessary to topple a country as large and as powerful as the United States of America. We're literally writing this manual as we go through this period of time. And I think it's almost a foregone conclusion that we will see some of these actions from the Trump administration because they will be necessary to preserve and protect the republic.
So are they, in your mind, you have Chuck Schumer out there as well, and I'm going to show some of Chuck Schumer right now, actually, folks. I mean, Chuck Schumer's out there rallying the left, saying, the No Kings movement, we got to stand up, we got to rise up. Are they pushing Trump to make that move, in your opinion? See, that's where I'm kind of confused, because do they want Trump to sign the Insurrection Act prematurely? Or
yes,
is that what they're gearing for here?
Yes, it absolutely is. And you stole the words right out of my mouth. You're seeing chess being waged out. You're seeing individuals on the left attempting continually, and even with some amount of effectiveness even now, attempting to paint the entirety of the nation's problems as a result of the election of President Trump and the MAGA agenda, if you will. And they're very, very calculated at how they do that. They've always been very coordinated. Chuck Schumer himself has admitted that he's very familiar with the intelligence community's tactics. He understands how that works. This is someone who would not be afraid whatsoever based on his pedigree and the history that he has and the proximity he has to some of this for utilizing those tactics himself. And I think you're seeing that played out. And so it becomes, again, that sort of irregular game of chicken. How far am I going to let you go before the diminishing returns are too great for me to continue to allow it? We want to, it's sort of like when you're buying stocks, you want to buy low and sell high. But what is the point where you begin the sell-off? What is the point where you decide, okay, I've held these cards, I've had them for a while, they're no longer beneficial for me to continue holding. This is the moment where the sell-off needs to occur. This is the moment where I need to change the trajectory of my behavior. And I think you're seeing that very calculated from the Trump White House and from the Trump administration. And it's worth noting that a lot of things are happening ancillary to all of these events, which lead me to think that perhaps one of the reasons we have it, allowed to persist relatively unchallenged so far up to this point is because of these other things that have been going on, like the dismissal of basically the entire Pentagon press pool. This is a massive event that hardly anyone's talking about, but the intelligence community had their primary infiltrative vector into U.S. military brass completely shut down as a result of these new Pentagon reporting rules. So now it is much more difficult for the intelligence community and intelligence-aligned actors to fabricate classified information or to leak classified information and compromise the plan here that the U.S. military may be concocting and monitoring in the background. And I say maybe because, of course, we don't have access to those types of circles, with any sort of regularity. So looking at this, there is a tremendous amount that's happening. This current government shutdown is allowing for the mass furlough of thousands of career bureaucrats, not the least of which are involved in the nation's national security administration or nation's nuclear security administration, which is a group of primarily think tank wannabes and intelligence community and U.S. military intelligence community holdovers that have been able to hold the nation's nuclear secrets hostage in exchange for favors at the foreign level. And we're seeing that sort of undone with this mass furlough and other angles that have yet to come out. There's still a DOJ investigation, according to John Solomon, that we don't have very much progress about. The vice president himself told us about a month and a half ago, 2 months ago now, that these investigations were serious, that the American public was not going to hear about them until they were concluded because they were ongoing. They were very serious and they involved significant elements of U.S. national security. And so we sort of have all of these different irons burning in this fire, and how we align the collection of these irons and the shutting down and the closing off of these irons, I think that's the core of your question. And in my opinion, it may be above my pay grade to answer, but there will have to be a point, make no mistake, there will have to be a marker in time where an insurrection is publicly called out for what it is. The components inside the United States of America that have assisted that foreign insurrection will have to be called out for what they are, and there will have to be some sort of militarized contest and militarized justice as a result of that. And I'd like to close that segment by saying that President Trump told us once again, and he said numerous times now in the last 18 months, but once again with a post, I believe it was in late July, early August of this year, on his personal Truth Social account, discussing the fact that former President Barack Obama had committed treason and was going to face a military commission.
Absolutely. So we are preparing for a showdown. We're prepping for this type of showdown or the main event. And I think both sides now know it's game time. Obviously, we can see it transpiring and we can see it kind of going in that trajectory. With the shutdown, that to me is complete strategy to kind of cut the limbs off the Democrat Party, the deep state. And now we're heading into this final finale, right, SG? So the No Kings movements are picking up. We could probably expect some kind of event. I don't know what kind of event, terrorist, I don't know, but to happen, because we also have to remember it's the Treasury versus the Federal Reserve. We have to make that switch financially, correct?
You just brought in another major dimension and aspect to the conversation that we've not covered yet, but I was just having that thought. All of this also is occurring against the backdrop of rebalancing of military power worldwide and rebalancing of financial power. And the financial component is maybe the most important, because as we look at what's happening right now in this period of time, what is it the result of? It is the result of decades and decades and indeed centuries of financial mal-control and malintent at the international stage. The funding of terrorism, all of the different U.S. aid dollars that have gone to our supposed enemies over the last 20 to 50 years, all of the different, CIA programs that received black budget funding, all of the lost hundreds of billions of dollars that went into NASA that no one can account for, the 2.3 trillion that still remains unaccounted for to this day from the Pentagon, announced the day before 9/11, 2001. As we look at this financial component and reorienting and rebalancing that and securing that for posterity, that eliminates the ability of the deep state long term to proliferate itself. It literally is the lifeblood of the beast, and the beast is having its blood drained off and then siphoned away and secured in an inaccessible manner going forward. So the desperation then becomes more and more as the blood flow becomes less and less and less. And so that, right alongside the geopolitical side, right alongside the political stuff in the United States, right alongside the military stuff, right alongside the U.S. Special Operations raid that happened on the island of St. Croix in early September, 55 miles from Epstein Island. I want to point that out for everyone. You're talking about a 40-minute boat ride between that airport that was raided by U.S. Air Force Special Operations and Epstein Islands, less than an hour apart by boat ride. We're looking at all of these different angles coming together and converging for the exposure of this massive globalist criminal syndicate that has had control of corporate money, has had control of nation state money and fiscal policy, and as a result of those two elements of control has also controlled political and military pulpits around the entirety of the planet for as long as we've been alive. All of that is shifting and changing now, and the financial component should not be overstated. And I want to add on that really quickly, the new banking standards for the International Standards Organization 20022, which allow for essentially the siphoning off and the closure of the ability to funnel money to terrorist budgets or to hide money in various jurisdictions worldwide. Those new standards go into effect on the anniversary of the assassination of President Kennedy.
And I'm going to pivot just for a second, folks, because Maduro now wants peace with the United States. And I think, SG, thinking strategy here, he got the memo. And the memo was, listen, play into the public. You got to play like you're the nice guy. You want peace so that anything Trump does, he looks like the demon. He looks like Satan. He looks like Hitler. He looks like he's trying to take over your country. So he kind of had to swallow his pride and say, we want peace. Venezuela wants peace. That way he rallies the left more behind Maduro. Do you agree with that? I think it's strategy.
I absolutely agree, but I would take the strategy even one level deeper. One of the things that I've taken a lot of note of, with President Maduro from Venezuela is that he showed up in January of 2021 with one of those red folders. And when we look at those red folders and the individuals around the planet, heads of state only, who have been photographed with these red folders, who has had them? President Maduro, President Xi of China, President Putin of Russia, Premier Kim of North Korea, President Donald Trump of the United States of America, and I think there's one or two others that escape me right off the top of my head. So individuals that, according to that first Trump presidency, if we buy any of our information from that entity online called Q, these are the types of individuals or individuals that were aligned in the back channels in the background to allow for a transition of power and a freeing, a liberation, if you will, of their cultures from this death grip that has emanated from the Western world political class and the Western world banking structures going back to the 1940s and the 1950s. And so what is happening in Venezuela right now? We're obviously seeing this pandering to this idea of the United States of America being these warmongers. We're seeing the narrative set up for this helpless country being attacked. But what else is occurring there? The Venezuelan military is not being engaged in resistance to what's happening on the ground in the northern area of South America and in those Caribbean waters right off the coast and into the international space. And that's a major human and drug and biological agent trafficking pathway going from there to Jamaica, then from Jamaica to Caymans to the Cubas, and then onward up into the United States. So looking at the intelligence community's history inside Venezuela specifically, we have documents from the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, all out of the CIA archives, showing that the U.S. and Western world intelligence communities, to include the Mossad out of Israel, just by the way, for the folks out there, they have had essentially an untouched playground inside the Venezuelan corridor for most of the last half of the 20th century. They were able to go in and do whatever they wanted. U.S. companies basically had control of resources since the late 1970s, early 1980s. At one point in time, the U.S. CIA was actually in Venezuela and Paraguay looking for post-war Nazi war criminals escaped from Germany. To what end, we don't know, but they seem to have a long and storied history of protecting the very things that they say that they're going after to sort of, find and destroy. And so as we look at what's happening right now in Venezuela, it's very much, in my opinion, the American military coming in to do a job that should have been done a long time ago, that the American military and intelligence community originally created the problem to begin with, to clean up this problem that they created to begin with. And instead of being distracted or bogged down or mired down by the response from the Venezuelan government, you simply have, one of those sort of what do they call them? The balloon things in front of the car dealerships where it falls over and then it jumps right back up again. That's basically what's happening coming out of Caracas, but there's no significant resistance to this mission of destroying narco trafficking. And I can assure you, Nino, when we use the term narco trafficking, we are also talking about human trafficking. We are also talking about biological agent smuggling. We are also talking about weapons dealing and weapons smuggling, because all of these black market criminal underbelly syndicate worlds follow the same flow charts. They follow the same transit pathways. They're all blobbed into these same corridors, because these are the corridors that have allowed for the movement across jurisdiction and outside of the ability to enforce and nail them down for a very long time now, going on 40, 50, in some cases 70 or 80 years. And so those are all being destroyed and interdicted in this process. But what we're being told is that it's about the flow of drugs.
And I was just going to point out, the other day I was talking about it, I think with Mary Fanning, and she's often on the JB Wells show, security report on the Midnight Caravan. We were talking about how Venezuela uses a type of submarine with the skin that's undetectable. And as we're talking about this, boom, Trump hits, or our forces hit a submarine from Venezuela. They're smuggling all the fentanyl on submarines. And bam, we hit a submarine. So I was asking the question, and it was either during or right after the show, bam. It's like, there it is. There was my answer. We hit a submarine. People need to understand how sophisticated this war is. They're bringing in fentanyl, because fentanyl, folks, let me just explain this for a second. There's no return on it. People die from this stuff. It's completely, what they're doing is wiping out our generation, our youthful generation. They are wiping out Americans. That's the whole objective here. Do you agree with me, SG? Because you can't sell it like you can sell cocaine or other drugs. Fentanyl is a death sentence. So they're bringing in the massive amounts of fentanyl is for one reason only, and that is to destroy America from within and kill off our population.
Correct. And on that particular topic alone, when we talk about fentanyl and the narco trafficking component, and I don't want to belabor the point, but we've got these other angles we should consider also as sort of right there in the mix with this act of war. But fentanyl itself, it's not an extension. I think a lot of people think of fentanyl as the new methamphetamine. It comes from these criminal cartels. They make it so that they can make a ton of money. It's all motivated by human greed, and they're just willing to do whatever dark activities they need to in order to make that money. That's not the case with fentanyl itself specifically. The criminal cartels in this instance, for once in their existence, are actually being relegated to the same level of useful idiots, cogs in the wheel, if you will, that the American left has been relegated to over the last 8 to 10 years. Fentanyl is a nation-state act of war. It is a chemical weapon of war that was developed by nation-state militarized laboratories with the sole purpose of creating a very lethal substance that could be cut and emulsified and included with all of these other types of substances that are easily moved around the rest of the planet, because jurisdictional restrictions are different in certain areas. That's why all of the cocaine for a long time came from South America, because up until the 1990s, there was virtually no legal restriction on the movement of cocaine across international boundary lines coming out of the South American shelf. So as we look at what's happening with fentanyl is an act of war that has been embedded inside these different trafficking pathways. And that's one of the angles that I think we have to keep in mind to consider here is a lot of these nation state groups that are involved in the production of fentanyl are actually at direct loggerhead states of war with the United States military. But because there is such this effective narrative blanket that has been cast all around the rest of the planet, we can't go out as the United States military and just simply bomb them into submission, because we will undo the progress we've made, especially inside the Western world. North America and Western Europe will undo the progress we've made with respect to destroying the warmongering and really creating an avenue and a consciousness of peace, a consciousness that wants peace. We're all tired of war. So we don't want to then celebrate that process going forward, but yet the fight still remains. And I'd like to highlight really quickly here, you mentioned submarines just a moment ago. Another thing that we know about submarines is that they are used to traffic a number of different what we would call acts of war or crimes against humanity. And Ghislaine Maxwell herself, exactly, you know where I'm going with this, Ghislaine Maxwell herself owned a submariner's license.
So exactly, and I agree with you 100%. So, and then who's the number one consumer? America. So this business model with fentanyl, folks, just understand this. This is not a business model for long-term profit. It's short-term profit, and it's a business model for war. That's all it is. It's short-term profit. It's short-sighted. They're killing off the consumer, the American consumer. And how are they doing that? Well, the people that use the fentanyl, but not only that, the people that get other drugs laced, like cocaine, like their heroin. Like, okay, obviously you shouldn't be doing that stuff, but the other drugs, like an Adderall or like a Xanax. A 13-year-old kid takes an Adderall to study. It's laced with fentanyl. She's dead. And that's how they're accomplishing their war tactic or their goals, and they're using the cartels who are short-sighted to push this stuff, right, SG?
Indeed. And in that fashion, it really does sort of go back to that concept of monetary flow and control, because the only reason you have organized black market criminal organizations involved in nation state politics, which is really what this amounts to, is because there's a great deal of money in it. There's a great deal of long-term ROI if you can seed and create the conflict years or even decades ahead of time. And that is what we are attempting to stop right now, is the preparation not only of the assault, we're not just trying to stop the assault on America and America's population and the population of the Western Hemisphere right now, but we're trying to prevent a future conflict as a result of the weakening that occurs inside the nation state level. And that weakening is multifold. It's the loss of the population. It's the corruption that controls the political actors. It's the activities that control the political actors, the blackmail and the bribery, which we're very familiar with, of course, in the post-Epstein landscape. We understand that that's a major concern for national security, right? If you have a nuclear scientist involved at the nation's Nuclear Security Administration captured in a blackmail tape, or potentially involved in drug or human trafficking of some kind, that is a major national security risk. Excuse me. And so all of this has to tie back, in my opinion, to the jurisdictional question of how much is expanded emergency authority actually worth? How far can we go in the fight before we call it an out-and-out act of war, before we call it a bona fide insurrection, before we call it a bona fide attack on the entirety of the peoples of the world? I think that we're coming into those discussions not just as a patriot community on podcasts, but as a national community inside the United States and inside the Western world. I think we're very, very near to having those out-and-out discussions from the public space and from the official pulpits of power.
I think we are just moments away. I mean, like I say, I never have a crystal ball. I hate making predictions, but I believe we should prepare. My audience should prepare for an event that'll change the world, put the world upside down on its head, and change humanity forever. Do you agree, SG?
I do. And I want to qualify that by saying that the only reason I believe that is because we have expended so much energy, so much effort, so much spiritual life force attempting to get the consciousness of the planet to realize up until the present day what is actually happening. And we're having progress with that. We are having success. Look at all of the Brightons that are turning out for the immigration rallies inside of London and Nottingham and others. Look at all of the Americans that went out and participated, for the first time, many for the first time in the political process, just for the 2024 election. Look at all of the different cultural groups inside of Western Europe who in their own way have gotten very, very civically and politically active and very well aware of the things that are going on and seek to educate and go after the youth and to provide that bulwark for the future, right? That was literally Charlie Kirk's business model, to reference the late man from September. So as we look at what's happening here, we are having success. We are moving that needle forward, but we are not quite to the level yet where the entirety of both sides are willing to focus on the largest issues. And what are the largest issues? The largest issues are the central bankers' control of worldwide politics, not just money, but politics. The ability of corruption to control military activities. We saw a brigadier general out of the Portland National Guard, the Oregon National Guard, just for example, who came out and actually, surprisingly, made a public statement saying that if Trump ordered the National Guard to activate in Portland, he would tell his men to defy those orders. That's literally mutiny against your commander-in-chief under the UCMJ. And so that obviously ties back to some sort of corruption or some sort of deep ideological misunderstanding that cannot be allowed to persist inside of a nation, inside of a people where we're all supposed to have a representative republic with democratic principles, right? We agree as we come to the ballot box that we will do what the majority wants as long as we respect the basic fundamental rights of the individual at all times. And so if we're not willing to do that, we have a system that simply cannot persist forward. And I think we're coming from those other conversations into this deeper area that we've been on, with this podcast and others for a very long time. But it is going to take a significant event or sequence of events that really gets the world's attention in a rapid way in order for those points to really be driven home, that war should not be used for profiteering. It should only be used as a last resort, that corruptive money inside the political process cannot be tolerated, cannot be allowed. And there have to be certain balances inside the judiciary, inside the legislature, and inside the executive that actually check and help to restore and keep one another in boundary, because without those balances and without those checks, we have no government at all.
SG, do you think we are now in the window of this mega event to happen with the government being shut down? Do you think it happens while the government is shut down? Do you think it happens this fall? I believe we're in the window. I had Christy Hutchison on reading the Homeland Security report saying there's a target window of now until December where cells can be activated. Do you feel we are now in this mega event window?
Actually, for the first time on a podcast, I think that I'm willing to say that I do feel that way. We've got this shutdown that's going on. We have a November and a December that, from an international finance viewpoint, from a financial lens worldwide, are going to be original unto all of mankind's history. We are still in a post-petrodollar world with the Saudis' refusal to renew that agreement. I believe that occurred last year, right before the election. So, that still is a relatively new thing. We have the IMF forecasting a nearly 4% expansion in the size of the Iraqi economy for 2026. That's meteoric compared to any expansion for any nation state really around the planet, except for just very short-lived periods of anomalous prosperity. And so for that to be their forecast for the Iraqi economy for next year, there's something big that has to happen there. So yes, I would say I think we're in the window. I think that any time in the next 4 to 6 months, we can see something dramatic and permanently altering about the United States of America and about the rest of the world. And I can say, Nino, after everything that we have learned, accomplished as a people, gone through as a people, begun to understand commonly as a people, we can only be the better for it.
Fair enough, SG. SG, I'll see you Monday at 9:30 a.m. for the morning show, the YouTube morning show, sir.
Indeed. God bless all. Thank you for having me, Nino.
All right, folks, get ready for the morning show. Thank you, SG, so much for joining me.
All right. SG Anon. Love listening to SG Anon. Before that, up front, the prophetic. Please check out her channel. Give it a subscribe. Yeah, I had to run up the stairs. Anyway, let's see if anything news come up. At least 3 killed in the UPS plane crash near Louisville. That's all I see. That was a heck of a plane crash. No hazardous cargo. Just fire and debris. Pretty wild, huh? Well, Patriots, remember the 5th of November. That's tomorrow. We'll see what that court case brings and all that good stuff. We'll keep an eye on Derek Johnson's channel. I'm sure he'll be back on. I'm curious to know what he did, though. I gotta admit. Can't imagine what he would have said that would have got him in trouble. I haven't been in trouble in a long time, so. And I pretty much say anything, so. I don't know, guys. Anyway, I think that's all I got for tonight. It's wrap-up time. I really appreciate you all being here. You guys are the best. Don't forget, the days of being anonymous are almost over. Time to build the future. I love that post. Good post. We got good things ahead, and really got nothing to worry about. And if you got God on your side, you really have nothing to worry about. I am ready for sleep. Yeah, is there any updates in the election? I suppose not. Let me take a look. Have to look at these things. I don't see anything yet. Be an interesting day tomorrow, I suppose, right? We'll find out about a lot of things. Everything's being exposed. And you know, I know people are saying we need to see things now. We want to see what we were promised now. It's manifesting, you know? It's like ghostly cloud coming in. It's going to get clearer and clearer and clearer, and then it's going to be standing right there in front of your face, and you won't be able to deny it any longer. That's where we're headed. So, exciting times. I love you, Patriots. Thank you so much for being here. I really am enjoying meeting all of you new patriots. I hope to see you back tomorrow. I'll be on tomorrow night. Much love and God bless, and have a good night.
Today was gonna be the day they were gonna throw it back to you. But by now you should have somehow realized what you got to do. I don't believe that anybody feels the way I do about you now. Backbeat, the word is on the street that the fire in your heart went out. And I'm sure you heard it all before, but you never really had a doubt. And I don't believe that anybody feels the way I do about you now. But all the roads we have to walk are winding, and all the lights that light the way are blinding. There are many things that I would like to say to you, and I don't know how. Maybe you're gonna be the one that saves me. And after all, you're my wonderwall. Today was gonna be the day, but they'll never throw it back to you. But by now you should have somehow realized what you got to do. I don't believe that anybody feels the way I do about you now. 'Cause all the roads we have to walk are winding, and all the lights that light the way are blinding. But there are many things that I would like to say to you, but I don't know how. I said I don't know how. Maybe you're gonna be the one that saves me. And after all, you're my wonderwall. Maybe you're gonna be the one that saves me. And after all, you're my wonderwall. And I said maybe you're gonna be the one that saves me. You're gonna be the one that saves me. You're gonna be the one that saves me.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country.
All we say to America is be true to what you said on paper. But somewhere I read of the freedom of assembly. Somewhere I read of the freedom of speech. Somewhere I read of the freedom of press. Somewhere I read that the greatness of America is the right to protest for right. We've got some difficult days ahead.
talking about genuine peace, the kind of peace that makes life on earth worth living, the kind that enables men and nations to grow and to hope and build a better life for their children. Not merely peace for Americans, but peace for all men and women. Not merely peace in our time, but peace in all time.